where parents can come to view the projects. And elementary school students are not eligible to participate in the county science fair, but it is good practice for the opportunity when they will be in middle school. The week of the 27th is also Autism Acceptance Week, sponsored and organized by the Dana Gray Parents Club. From the middle school, the third iReady benchmark is happening for reading and math. Kelly Smith is working with the teacher teams next week. There will be a dance on the 17th from 6 to 8 p.m. Softball and soccer season is here, and the ELPAC testing started this week. From Alternative Education, 7 students and a teacher went to Sacramento over the weekend to play a basketball game against the Big Picture School from Ukiah. They played on the Sacramento Kings basketball court and then watched the Sacramento Kings and the Minnesota Timberwolves play. They spent the night and they had an amazing time, according to Connie. And from the high school, spring sports are in full swing. Yes, pun intended, Mr. Triplett says. Check out the website for all of the upcoming home events. The 10th will be when CAL FIRE comes on campus to discuss careers. March 13th, Cope Health will be on campus discussing career opportunities at Adventist Health. Thanks to the career and college specialist Lily Titchenen for coordinating these events. March 14 through 20, FFA will be attending the State Leadership Conference. The Pavioni Baseball Tournament is next week, and depending on weather, it will either be the 16th through 17th or 17th through 18th. On March 31st, a few of the English classes is going to the Shakespeare Festival at Cotton Auditorium. On April 4th, the band is traveling to Point Arena to participate in an event with the Point Arena High School Band. And on April 7th, Redwood is coming to the high school to attend the Spring Carnival. Looking forward to that, doing the workshops with the little kids. And on the FBHS webpage, there's a new library page where you can search for books and other online articles. And a small shout out to one of Mr. Carr's digital media students, Pax Johnson, for creating this page on the website. And for all of the FBUSD schools, spring break is the week of April 10th through April 14th. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Oh, are we going to have move this down for Don Alameda, or?
No, I think he's present.
Oh, he's here. Okay,
Yes.
great. So 8.2, General Obligation Bond Funds Construction Project Update. Oh,
There he is.
Can you hear me fine?
All right, Don, I think I got you.
Okay.
there we go.
I've got a earpiece on because it's hard to hear you guys, so hopefully we could do this. Thank you for accommodating me remotely. I had too many board meetings at one day, or at the same time. Do you want to run the slide, or you want me to run the slide and share?
I can run on them. I've got them up on the screen.
Okay, let me put it up on my account, my other screen here, and I can walk through it. Okay, here we are. So the first slide is basically just the financials where we are. We've spent about 73% of the budget for phase 1, and we are just about done with the project, accepting the bus ramp and waiting on the electrical switchgear and waiting on the mechanical for the building. There hasn't been any real big surprises. We had a couple big credits at the start of the project that we didn't have to do some site work. And we've been drawing against that against other events that were small expenses. So we're netting out to be actually a negative change orders here. So we're doing just fine financially on this project. You want to go to the next slide? Okay. This is basically, they are done with the interior improvements with the exception of putting up some lights, bracing lights, and some other small items inside. The goal from the contractor, or Brandon, the superintendent, is to have an architectural punch list, which is where we go through the building as if it's done and we mark up other things that are outstanding that needs to be done. His goal is to do that on the 27th of this month. Of course, the mechanical won't be in, the electrical switchgear won't be in, but we could get the lion's share of the punch list done on the 27th. And they have temporary heat. They got temporary lighting from the old panels. So we're up and running. It's just not, we're still waiting on getting the mechanical equipment here to install and the switchgear in the summer to install. So all in all, given procurement issues, we're doing pretty good. Why don't we go to the next slide? That's just a tracking our schedule. You can see we're behind the original completion date, but it's understandable given the procurement issues. And I already mentioned what they are. It's electrical switchgear. It's supposed to come in the summer, and the boiler come anytime now. Okay, next slide. Okay, here's I know you guys toured it last month. Right now it's at a crawl. It looks like a crawl space, or crawl pace, because we're waiting for weather to get better to finish up stuff on the exterior. And like I said, the interiors can be ready for punch list by the 27th of this month. And that's about it for phase one. I can speak a little bit about phase two, and then I'll be open for questions. The last slide. We're starting to, we had a second meeting with site members, the principal and other members on site for phase two. We've narrowed down a revised location for the kindergarten or pre-K building that I'll bring this next month if I can get something from TK on it. Basically, we met, we had some comments, they had some comments to the architect. The architect is going back and revising plans and making new suggestions, and just getting going on phase two on that in that respect. So that's really all I have for phase two. Any questions on either phase?
Thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you for accommodating me, and I'll see you next time.
All right, thanks. Stay dry.
Thanks, Don.
Bye.
Okay, we'll move on to item 8.3, superintendent report, and I'll let you list those.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we'll start with 8.3.1, FBMS highlights. So we have Ms. Loomis with us tonight, who's going to provide those updates.
Hi, everybody. All right. So that art class created that. That's in our gym right now. We had a boys and girls A-team basketball game versus our staff. We lost again, but it was a lot of fun. A little painful the next day. We had a really amazing assembly for the whole school. It started with our band. And then if you go to the next slide, then our choir performed, and go to the next slide. And then the entire sixth grade, most everybody got up on stage, and in PE they all had learned different dances, so every grade level did a different dance. So sixth grade did a dance in front of the whole school, kind of did a dance off. And then seventh grade did their dance. And then eighth grade went on. And then we had the staff dance. It went viral. We are now celebrities. Yeah. And then there's one more of the staff. We had a lot of fun. It was really hard work. We practiced these little TikTok dances and performed them. They were fun. From Ag, lots of work in the garden. This is from Mr. Rand. And FFA stuff with Ag. They had a fundraiser, and we did these lunchtime activities. I believe that's the pie eating contest in the middle, a little tug of war. And I think that's on the left, the Get Hogged game. They raised over $170 and give it to the Humane Society. So this, I think, is Miss Crowningshield having the circle time read aloud. Ghost Boys is the book. Ms. Cesario had her Puffmobile winners. So Byron Lima got first, Azez second. I can't see who that is in third, the hoodie on. I don't know who third place is. Miss Malsum has done an amazing job creating this wellness center. If you get a chance to stop by, it's beautiful. Students' new favorite place, and she's also redecorated our entire staff room too. So she's just started a tea time as well with students in there. So that's been a real exciting space in our campus. And then our art class created this really fun interactive video. So it just kind of plays on its own. This was presented at our assembly, and it had music that went with it. And so this is all student artwork created into this fun digital slideshow.
Do you know the program that it's using? Because I can't imagine that it's that many pictures of the same thing moving like we used to do in the old days.
I know you'll have to ask Mr. Godek and Mr. McCreary
Pretty
who
cool.
created this. It's super cool. Yeah, I don't know how they did it, but I love it. We've got a lot of talent at our school. A lot of imagination.
See the kids moving behind it.
The fish are taking a beating.
Must be hungry.
Right. A never-ending slideshow. So yeah, that's what's been going on at the middle school. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. Lots of artists.
All
Okay.
right. Next up, we have the Mendocino Coast Clinic Student Services Update.
Hi there. I know many of you, but my name is Stacy Polina, and I am the Sexual and Reproductive Health Program Coordinator at Mendocino Coast Clinics, and I'm also the supervisor of the Youth Wellness Programs over at the JD Center. So super grateful that the school district has entrusted us with this space and this building, and so next slide. The report, I decided to just look at this school year. So we started last year. We have open hours on Wednesday afternoons, right after the minimum day. We open the doors, and we have walk-in services. So our regular Blue Door walk-in services, which is everything from pregnancy testing to STI testing. We offer birth control, emergency contraception, education, and then we also have an LCSW counselor who's available for appointments and by walk-in. And yeah, 1 to 4. So this is just by the numbers this past year. Basically, we followed so far right now we're following the school calendar. So when the school's open, we're open, and when it's closed, we're closed. It sort of feels a little bit dead around here. A little bit dead around here when school is closed. But my ideal would be that it would be a place that kids felt like they could come during the breaks and during the summer. So that's sort of leading up to that. But at this point, we're just following this school calendar. So walk-in services, this year we've seen 68 different patients. We have, so State of California says that anyone 12 and up can consent to comprehensive sexual health services, minor consent, so they can consent without their parents' intervention or whatever. So we serve kids from the middle school through the high school, NOYO, Alt-Ed, and those are all walk-in. And then our behavioral health, our LCSW Genevieve, we had 50 appointments, 13 different students. Again, some of them are walk-in, most of them are by appointment. She works with a lot of parents. She's bilingual, so she works with a lot of our Spanish-speaking families and then sees the kids. Most of her appointments right now have been by appointment, not on a walk-in basis. But we have definitely had kids come in crisis. We've had counselors bring over a student from NOYO, from the middle school, asking for some help. I actually recently got a text on our text line from one of the bilingual family liaisons wanting to meet with Genevieve and help advocate for a family. So sort of all the different ways that we want people to be able to access services has been, it's starting. And then, yeah, okay, so I said that. Anyway, okay, next. Dun, dun. So looking ahead, like I said, so that's a report on sort of what we've been doing. So Mendocino Coast Clinics did get a grant, and the goal of the grant is to increase access to mental health and wellness services in the community. And everyone here is in a youth serving role or has kids and knows, we're in a national crisis in terms of young people and young adults' mental health. The recent CDC reports were pretty staggering in terms of the numbers of depression, anxiety, suicidality, and especially teen girls reporting the levels of trauma and violence that they face in their day-to-day lives. So what is gratifying to me is seeing that the national conversation is really shifting and is really looking at how are we supporting young people? How are we redefining mental health? Mental health is health. Mental health is wellness. How are we destigmatizing the conversation? Will you go ahead one slide? I forget what I wrote. So the goal is to expand services, but again, I think the program is really open-ended, and so it'll really, the community and students, staff, you all here will help define what does it mean to support our kids and support our community in providing mental health services. So, of course, there's a model of the counselor and the one-on-one, come in and see the counselor, walk in, how do we access it, but really looking at prevention and not diagnosing. And, so there's the idea of screening kids and making sure that kids who come up with a high depression screen or, real issues are definitely having access to services. So that's a piece we know we want to carry out. And then there's all the rest of our kids. And so how are we serving them? How are we having these conversations, having the hard conversations, supporting them in knowing that there are places they can go forward? There are trusted adults. So again, prevention, resilience building, how are we engaging the school community? And it's an open-ended conversation. And I had one slide. So basically, right now, we are hiring 2 community health workers. I just hired somebody. She starts on Monday. And the idea is that they are people who are from the community, are familiar with the community, have trusted relationships already existing, and know how we can build on the resources we already have. CHWs provide a bridge for youth and families to resources and services. So again, we're talking a lot about the JD Center and youth services and behavioral health, mental health services, but MCC has a wide array of, from dental to primary care, to we help people sign up for CalFresh food stamps, to sign up for Medi-Cal. We can, so really looking at families as a whole and making sure that families know that they have access to all the services that MCC has. Going. So youth leaders, I've had a number of students come to us over at Blue Door and say, hey, we want to volunteer. What do you got going on? So our community health worker, who, like I said, is starting on Monday, the goal is to, have a meeting, get kids together and say, okay, what do you want to do? There are a lot of amazing, and I have a couple of websites at the end, a lot of amazing websites that are really looking, and national organizations that are really looking at, like I said, redefining the conversation, seeing how we're engaging youth, using art, using interactive arts education. There's Janet from Flockworks, shout out. Anyway, so I've met with teacher from the high school, teacher from the middle school, and already opening that conversation of how we're going to be in advisories, how we can connect with young people, provide workshops. Keep going. So pop-up events. This is the plan for the spring as I'm seeing it. So Sexual Assault Awareness Month is April, Mental Health Awareness Month is May, and then in June, we've been in conversations with Fort Bragg Police in terms of doing some fentanyl awareness and some overdose prevention. So at the JD Center, having some events where kids can just drop in, either after school, we can do some evening stuff. Again, it's sort of going to be defined by what the needs are and what kind of feedback. And I'm super committed to it being youth-led and helping, kids letting us know what they want to see and how we want to do it. Keep going. Resources. The JED Foundation. They are definitely national leaders in promoting and supporting emotional well-being among teens and young adults. They are partnering with, many different organizations, many different universities and high schools. And so they have a curriculum, and I would be excited to see if Fort Bragg Unified would look at their curriculum and see if it's something we wanted to invest in. And I don't know what the cost is, but they definitely have strategic planning and provide resources. And like I said, they're pretty much behind a lot of sort of the new things that I'm seeing out there around mental health and wellness. And like I said, redefining it, destigmatizing the conversations. Keep going. And this is one of their websites. I don't know if it's not moving. Anyway, so when you go to Mental Health is Health, the breathe in and breathe out, it just leads you immediately into a breathing exercise. And then another website that they are partnering with is called Amplifier Art. And again, it's sort of looking at just new and different ways. Check it out. They have an app and they have a website. They have all these interactive, beautiful pieces of art that then, it was interesting to see the middle school art moving. So all this art that's sort of moving, and then they have QR codes where kids can put their phone at the QR code and it brings them to a website, and there are resources, and it definitely promotes just healthy exercises, healthy activities, looking at health as well-being, and like I said, mental health is health, and destigmatizing the conversation. I think that's my last slide. Yeah, is it? Okay. Anyway, so I don't know if y'all have any questions.
Any questions?
So I'm observing that kids don't like to pick up the phone and make phone calls.
We're all about texting. We have a text line.
So is the text line the same as the Blue Door?
Mhm.
513-7575? Is that the number that they can ask for?
Ask for anything.
assistance? Yeah,
Yep.
that seems like that's more
That's how we
accessible for them.
communicate with, exactly. So, all of our kids who are seeing our LCSW there, text in.
Okay.
I want to make an appointment. I want to cancel. Yeah.
Is it posted on the door out front? Just if someone were to go up and they were too
There's a
shy to
little-
knock on the door?
There's a little poster, and then there's information.
Number.
So it's on there for
Perfect.
sure, and it's on
Okay.
all the cards that are
Around.
hopefully everywhere at all the
Okay.
schools. Yeah.
Awesome.
And we have 2 different cards. We have our regular card, because we still do Blue Door walk-in hours and basically serve young people up to age 25 is sort of that age group that Blue Door serves. But I mean, the JD Center is mostly focused on students, and so we have little cards that are just the program here. And then we still see patients Mondays and Thursday afternoons by walk-in. Yeah,
Awesome.
thank
Thanks.
you.
Any other questions?
I was just thinking about coming in, but I wouldn't think anybody wants an adult there between 1 and 4. So do you think maybe somebody could meet us there at like 12:30 or?
Absolutely,
Or-
anytime.
okay.
I'd love to meet you guys. So
Okay.
to just come and check it out, that'd be great. I mean, we could do it on a different day. We can just make a date. I can meet you all there. And so,
But a
yeah.
Wednesday would work for me.
What day?
So if we met, I mean,
A Wednesday, 12:30 or something.
I just wouldn't want to scare any kids away because there's
Right,
a bunch
yeah.
of adults
What
there.
are they
so,
doing there? Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So do you want to meet this coming Wednesday? I can look at my,
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but
Oh,
I
no,
was
I
just
think that's a
thinking
great
it's an
idea.
option. Yeah.
well, and, so part of the future vision is having more activities and events in the big community room. And so, we're looking at partnering with assets and doing some like arts projects, interactive arts projects, again, so any pop-up events would be like open house pop-up events in that space. Yeah, so using that space. And Flockworks has been, you'll see all the art in the space is Flockworks, floor to ceiling.
So we're gonna, those of us who can, 12:30 Wednesday?
March 15.
March 15th.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. So I went to
Open invitation
pre-
to,
the painting
Yeah.
occurred, so it'd be nice to see establishment.
and you all saw you can see the mural from the outside. That was created by Janet in collaboration with Yesenia Vasquez, the art teacher, and her students from last year painted that mural on the front of the building.
Well, thank you so much for all the work
Awesome.
you're doing. This is a great resource for our kids.
Thank you very much, like I said, for entrusting us with this space.
Can you, I'm looking at this JED High School.
Yeah.
Is there, I mean, not right now, but when you have time, can you send us just more information on how we can become a JED High? I mean, I can look at the website, but that's different
Right.
from
I mean,
how to
I can look
engage.
into it more and see. I mean, it would definitely be interesting if you all are open to see how whatever we are creating could line up with that. I can do that. Sure. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for everything,
Thank you.
too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, moving on to 8.3.1.
All right.
Oh, we did that. I'm
Yep, we're
way
on
behind.
8.3.3.
Three. I'm bad.
LCAP plan.
I need a break. No, I'm kidding. I'm good. I need something.
So we've had 2 general meetings for input. I've also attended meetings at Redwood, Dana Gray, and Alternative Ed. And I have meetings for the high school and middle school happening in the coming weeks. I think the middle school is on Monday, and the high school is maybe the following week. Feedback was sought from our DLAC last week. I still need to connect with Tina about that, as I was not well that day. Surveys have been sent out to parents and community members. Also, if you got a chance to look in the paper today, there was the LCAP article made its way there, so we really appreciate the support from the advocate to get that in, and hopefully that'll bolster some of our response rates as well. So we've gotten about 65 or so responses on the parent community survey, and I'd like to see that go up a bit before get a little more representative of our.
Jeez, I did 2 of them.
What's that?
How many?
65.
65.
Yes.
Are you seeing any themes? I mean, you probably haven't read the stuff.
I really
yet.
haven't read it yet
Yeah.
because I'll lament over
Yeah.
certain things, and
Mhm.
I just know myself well enough to let the process complete, and then we'll
Yes, got it.
go through and sort and make it all work. So, the other thing that's coming up with LCAP planning is just the state budget is really remaining a large uncertainty in our planning. We're hearing COLAs, but I don't want to bank on any of that, and I think we're in good financial condition right now. It's just thinking about those out years, and especially with the LCAP not starting anything that we would then have to turn around lay people off or make hard program decisions if they're not something we're completely committed to. We've also gotten a lot of LCAP feedback so far. I will share this document with you as well. If Renee, there's the next slide there. I know it's not very big on here, but I've heard from pretty consistently that art and music programs are wanted at the elementary level. Someone had an interesting idea about expanding some of our CTE pathways down to the elementary levels if possible, if there were some ways to do that. If you look on here and you see the ones that are in bold, though it doesn't stand out in the spot very well, I've heard again and again about providing additional supports for newcomers, that our bilingual family liaisons are great. It might be nice to have another position along those lines as a eventual outcome for us, just because I think that they're thinking all families can use support at some point, and just having access would be really nice. And that resoundingly continuing to maintain our counselors at each site, as Stacy was saying, with the mental health with students. That has really gone well with folks, and they really appreciate having that support there, along with the other things that you can see that they've listed there. I'll let you read over those at your leisure. And so with the LCAP, our next steps, we'll finish up that. I am starting to actually edit the actual document, and hope to have a draft to you in May. Even if it doesn't have the financial information, at least the content will be there. And we'll go from there.
Great. Any questions?
So this was just what you received at your meetings?
Yes,
Not from the survey?
Nothing from the survey. I'll bring that to you next month as a part of things. I'll make all the nice graphs, and so you can read all the comments as well. I love the kid comments, I have to say. The student comments are always going to be my favorite, just because they're so honest. So I haven't opened them up yet until I have just a day that's not going so well. Then I'm going to open them and read them, because they always make me laugh every year I've done this. So. Alrighty.
Can we put all of those meetings, the rest on the board calendar? I see the middle school one, but I don't see the others you mentioned. Do you have more coming up?
Yes, I think it's just the middle school and high school site council meetings.
Oh, just the site council?
Yeah,
Okay.
those are
Okay.
the only two that I need to attend at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think the high school is on Monday at 4:30.
Oh, so it's the
I've
high
got
school
it
one, I think,
down.
so middle school then.
That's the only one
I will be there.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely.
And moving on to 8.3.4, summer school planning.
So we have summer school planning. Unfortunately, Carolyn Carini has had a family emergency that's pulled her away from some of this, so we're meeting next week to kind of regroup and figure out what our next steps are. We have sent out a survey to recruit staff, so we've got folks signing up, and I think it had a really good response, so I think we'll have adequate staff to run a high-quality program. We're planning to offer the mornings in June 14th through July 13th. I have to check those dates with Carolyn when we have a conversation maybe next week to see. I know that she has a requirement in special ed for ESY to make sure it's 20 days, and I'm not sure if she remembered the Juneteenth holiday in that planning or not. So I'll talk to her about it and we'll see. Let's see, there is a small possibility. Beth and I have exchanged some emails back and forth about the idea of an afternoon program. I would certainly be in support of that, but we haven't worked out logistics and talked in depth about that yet. So I'm keeping that out there as a small possibility. We have ELOP and COVID funds to cover this program, so we can offer pretty rich opportunities for our kiddos. And we're still working out the details of where summer school will be held. We have windows replacements that's happening at Redwood. We have flooring replacement at the middle school, and we have the potential playground replacement at Dana Gray.
Oh.
So it sort of means it's probably going to be the high school if I'm doing the math correctly, but I'm not sure what we would need to bring over and what the logistics of that. So that's probably our biggest hurdle to overcome at this point.
Okay, any questions? Okay, moving on to 8.3.5, district-wide update.
All right, these are fairly brief tonight, just we've got a long agenda, so. In speaking with Mrs. Erickson at Redwood, she was asking if she could present her data at the first meeting in June. Just thinks it would be more meaningful to get kind of an end of the year check-in for the students, as they don't do any end of the year testing through CASP. So we just thought it would be a better timing for that. It also gives us some nice baseline data for our summer school, and I would be in support of that for her. I think that that would work out well for us. So whereas the other schools, they all have some sort of CASP testing that happens, so there is an end of the year pickup for them as well. So in some very recent news, as in it was just approved by the state board today, we have been approved for a $200,000 community schools planning grant, and that we have 2 years to spend that. So what we will do is hopefully be able to pay a community schools coordinator to do a community assessment and help us create a plan that we can then apply for the implementation grant, and that's up to $500,000 a year to fund services such as what Stacy was talking about, partnerships with Blue Doors or with other opportunities within the community, whatever we figure out in our assessment is a need, and it's very generous, and we sit right at that eligibility threshold where we're virtually guaranteed to be able to move forward if we write a good grant. So I'm pretty excited in that regard. As far as budget updates go, the Legislative Analyst Office has provided an update on the state budget. Revenue estimates are coming in lower than expected. It's been even further exacerbated by the fact that all these extensions on when taxes need to be filed, so they don't have a really clear picture. One of the concerns that we have is if their returns come in lower because they're giving till October, are we going to face any mid-year cuts? So we're sort of, that's never popular, but at the same time, it's not like the legislature hasn't done that to us in the past. So we're kind of cautiously optimistic there. I think we're in good fiscal shape right now with the staffing that we have moving forward. Wendy will talk more about what that looks like, in the second interim presentation as well. But as a part of just out there on the horizon this time next year, we may be making some decisions about the priority of programs and services that we want to continue as the COVID funds particularly start to dry up and we're left with our more traditional sources. So. And a human resources update. Tomorrow I'll be driving to Sonoma State. We have a recruiting event there. We have 12 teaching vacancies, 2 classified vacancies, and 2 administrative vacancies. Now that we've been approved for the community schools planning grant, my plan is to take the alt-ed principal position and make that half community schools and half alt-ed. Seems like that's a really nice marriage of the type of supports that our students in alternative education need. And so dual fund that position in that way. So moving forward, that person could really be involved in those services and really get the kiddos connected there. And we're going to continue our recruiting as always. Facilities updates, we've had our second planning meeting with the architects for phase 2 at Redwood. Again, this has just been information gathering for the most part. What are the needs, helping them understand what the programs are a little better, that sort of thing. At this point, the phase includes the administrative space renovation. So the entrance will be kind of right off the bus loop that I know is hard to envision because it's not there yet. But it'll be basically where the library is now will be the main entrance to Redwood there. And they'll put out a nice structure there so that it's really clear that that's the entrance. So they got that piece of feedback from us. We said, folks need to know where to come in the school. They don't right now. And we'll also have an additional 4 classrooms. So 3 of those are TK classrooms and will be paid for out of bond funds. a fourth one will be for after-school programs and will be paid for out of the ELOP. And then we also asked the architects to include a playground for TK within the plans, because TK really does need to have their own set of equipment, as most of our equipment on the main playground is rated for 5 and up. And our TKers will be 4 coming in a couple of years here. And that's all for my updates.
Thank you. Any questions? Nope. All right, thank you. And moving on to 8.4, do we have a CSEA report?
No.
Okay. And 8.5, an FBDTA report? Nope. And do we have any public comment? Okay. All right. Now we'll move on to approval of agenda consent items, and I'll ask Vice President Schneider to read those.
Sure. Item 9.1, warrants. 9.2, minutes of both the February 9th, 23 regular meeting and the February 11th special meeting. Personnel action report at 9.3. 9.4, contracts, and 9.5, AB 361.
Okay, before we go forward with a vote, are there any questions? Okay. All right, so may I have a motion?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, and a second?
I will second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes, and opposed? No. Okay, motion carried. Okay, we'll move on to our board action items, starting out with 10.1, Expanded Learning Opportunities Program Plan.
All right, so I had brought this plan to you in the fall. Our plans have changed a little bit since then. We're so happy that we're getting close to a partnership with Flockworks to provide the ELOP support. Flockworks has been really working diligently to scale up their operations, and Janet, thank you so much for all of your communication and all the hard work that you're putting into this. It really shows your commitment to this and to our students and our community, and I think we're really excited to be able to work with you in moving forward. They have contracted with a company to handle payroll and human resources policies. I know that there were some concerns about the size organization they are, moving up to being an employer of this many folks. That we've had lots of conversations. That's probably most of our conversations is about some of that scaling up there. We're thinking that much of the existing staff in the Kudos and Assets program will plan to remain in their current positions and transfer over to becoming Flockworks employees once we've got all those agreements worked out and everything moving forward. The one thing I will say is lovely in working with Flockworks. Janet came to me and said, I don't want to just be an employer, I want to be a good employer if we're going to do this. So I really appreciate the thought about the community and the support for our employees who will be there working with you as well. So we will provide, as we have in the past, the background checks, the tuberculosis screening, and safety training materials to the employees. And I have a budget for the remainder of this year on the next slide. Once we know exactly how much money we'll get for next year, then we'll build out a budget for that as well. It should be similar to what we had for this year. And so currently we have about $150,000, no, $200,000 or so for our summer school programs that can be funded here. Again, we also have some existing COVID funds that will help support that as well. We have $50,000 still laid out for community partnerships. We've been accessing that some, but I anticipate that some of our students may wish to participate in some summer camps, and we may be able to offer that and enrich some of our community in that way, making sure that students can get in and participate there. So we also have budgeted here building improvements to support the program. So that's the playground at Dana Gray, and then also the classroom project. Though we anticipate the classroom project probably isn't going to start being constructed until next year, but some of these funds will carry forward, so that should still be an opportunity. And then we're also adding to the budget here vans for student transportation in the expanded learning opportunities programs. currently we don't have enough students. We don't have the ability to transport students anywhere, so we're having to piecemeal that with our buses, and we try as best we can, but the vans would really open this up. So this would allow us to buy 5 vans. Is that what we were targeting?
I think so.
And we found through A to Z bus sales, strangely enough, rather than going to some of the other companies, has availability for these at this point. Because we looked with Ford and we looked, all the dealerships first that were on different contracts, and they had plenty of cargo vans, but no actual people vans. So. Alrighty. Any questions about the?
Yeah, are there any grants available like we just got for our school buses for the vans?
There are not. But I will say I've got the vans plugged in here. We have some money that's set to expire on June 30th that we got for last school year's ELOT program. And if we don't spend it, we have to return it to the state. So we're hoping that we can either deliver the vans or the playground before June 30th to be able to pay out those funds and not have to send it back to the state. So we're working hard to try to not send any money back.
How much do you have from last year?
500, it's just shy of 500,000. I think it's 497. So, yeah.
Quick, hurry up.
Yes.
Yeah. I know. It's only March, but it's March.
Right. It's already March.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
About the whole ELOP or just what he's done?
Just about 10.1.
It's just the
Because
plan.
there's
So,
4.
yeah, no, I understand. So, after going to the virtual MCRD meeting about ELOP, and they were running from it because they didn't think they could come up with funding, or not funding, but staffing. And I know that Beth commented during that meeting that they probably would. I'm concerned that we have adequate staffing. I also am concerned that, in talking to the previous superintendent, that they were reluctant to do this program because if they failed, there was some kind of a penalty and you had to pay a bunch of money back. So I just want to make sure that we're.
The penalty is to return the money that is not expended appropriately. So in the worst case scenario, we'd have to send back the money that's allocated for this plan if we shut it down. I think honestly, in working with Beth and with Janet on these things, I think we can get staffing encouraged simply because, as I said, Flockworks is really committed to being a quality employer, so they're actually going to offer pay rates that will encourage some of our paraprofessionals who work during the day to say, oh, well, that's actually worth my time to go and do that. As opposed to, there was some resistance to that with MCRPD when we've had some discussions with that earlier this year. So I think that we'll have the pay structure there. I think that there's also the nature of the program is shifting with Flockworks coming in, that they really want to provide more engaging curriculum as a part of the program. Not that MCRPD hasn't offered that, but it's just they bring in the art side of things and just really that being the focus of what we're doing in the program. So I think between those things that folks are going to have more fun being working in the program. So I'm hoping that we do draw more people. The current staff that we have in our Kudos and our assets programs, I think many of them are going to transfer over just because it will be worth their time and money. They'll get plenty of money for doing so.
So that was the last part of my question is then Flockworks is going to assimilate the Kudos and the assets program over time?
Yes, that's the current plan.
Okay, thank you.
Well, in worst case scenario, if you couldn't find the staff, it wouldn't fly. I mean, that's
Right.
You have to try to hire and make the program.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it'll also be worthwhile for some of our high school students. There is that aid level support there, so it may actually help to start growing. I know I was talking with Deb Cuban from Ukiah. They've had a lot of their high school students starting, and then as they graduate, they go on to become aides in the classroom because they got that experience in the after-school program that they're running. So it could be a nice pipeline to develop our students into future educators, I'm hoping, so.
So you have a fair amount of flexibility because you don't have any barriers to allow that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
that's the benefit of working also with Flockworks is we don't have to, if we get a good idea, we don't have to run it through a union and get approval and all those sort of things. We can be a little more nimble, and then when it works, we can put it down in a plan and memorialize it that way, so.
And there's confidence to get all this done by the beginning of the school year.
There is. There's a lot of work to be done, but we've got some very motivated people working on this, so I'm very confident. Yes.
Okay. Well, I've had the joy to kind of from afar watch Flockworks for many, many years, and I realize how huge of a step this is. Having grown my own nonprofit from being volunteer only to staffing, it's a lot of work, and I commend you for wanting to do it and wish you the best success.
We're trying on some good consultants to help us get those complicated things done well.
Excellent.
Okay. So may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve item 10.1, the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program Plan.
Okay, and a second?
I will second, and just wondering if there's any public comment.
That's my next question. And any more discussion here? Okay, roll call?
Trustee Macklip?
Yes.
Sure, on here. Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you, Renee. Okay, moving on, 10.2, Memorandum of Understanding with Flockworks for Expanded Learning Opportunities ELO Program.
All right. So the MOU will serve as our operating agreement for the program. What we've asked Flockworks to do is to sort of break this out and have the MOU, and then we have a contract for services that basically says, here's the budget that we think we're going to be working within. Janet's very well aware, and I'll show you on the next couple of slides that what's there is well under what we're actually being allocated. So I feel confident that we can work within the budget, and even if we end up over the estimated budget, that we still have some room to grow into that. Because some of the unknown with this is how many students are going to want to take part in the program next year. We know how many we've had this year and how many we've had on the waiting list, so we're kind of scaling up thinking about that. But we also know with adding TK in that we're going to have to offer more time in TK just because it's a longer day for the staff there, that kind of thing. It is within the MOU to have monthly meetings to review the program implementation, so we'll meet with the staff, review expenditures, make any necessary adjustments to the program. We'll also have some check-ins along the way that we built into the MOU to make sure that we can, I think it's by November 1st that we sit down and actually really dive into the budget to make sure aligned with the time that we would typically be doing the first interim, that everything's looking good and we don't need to make any major budget adjustments to continue the program being funded at that point. But I think, as you'll see on these next couple of slides, so if you want to advance, and Janet was able to provide us with kind of a broad overview here of taking the existing staff and then expanding out. And so if you look, she figured out a base cost, and then she also figured out a base plus a 20%, assuming that there would be some increases that with the pay rates that they want to have. And so this gives an idea of where the base cost is versus where we think that it will likely end up. And I just realized I left one of the costs out of the next calculation, so I apologize. I didn't get the 98,000 in there, I do not believe. So when we look at the next slide, this is what we're, this is the assets portion of the budget. This one's a little more straightforward just because there's not as many moving parts in our assets program. And then finally, the next slide shows sort of If we looked at our ACES program, which is basically what we're going to run all of our ELOP under, the total expenditures I had at 765, add about 100 to that because I think I left off that top line, so it'll be about 865. And even with that, we would end up with a remaining balance in our ELOP funds of around just a little under $700,000. And so I think that we have adequate funding to implement this and still have room for growth and be able to take care of some of the other areas of need that we have. So just kind of showing some, and this is superintendent math, so if I make Wendy scowl, I'm sorry. Because it's the broad numbers, it's not looking at all the intimate details that, so.
The $500,000, does that have to be spent only during the summer?
It
What
just has to be spent by June 30th, and it has to be on programs outside of the school day or the equipment to support the ELOP programs. So that's the conundrum we're coming up with, is how do we spend it within the programs and that's not included in this budget. This is taking the annualized amount that we're expecting to get from ELOP of the 1.6 million.
And the ACES and assets operate in 180 school days, so there are break weeks in there that we were thinking we might be able to use.
So that revenue, that 1.6, does not include the 500,000.
It does not.
Okay.
No, our revenue for this year was a little over $2 million. Okay. If you include that or between last year and this year was a little over $2 million.
And that's the money we're trying to spend.
The 500,000, yes, what we're trying to spend.
Playground.
So
Yes.
ordering, invoicing, installed, what do they count as spending?
Paid,
Paid.
yes.
Okay.
Oh.
So it's a tight turnaround, but we're hopeful that the playground will probably, we're thinking if it does get approved tonight that we can move quickly on that. And they thought that they probably could have it installed by the end of June. So they said the turnaround was about 12 weeks to order, and then they'll just, when it gets here, they don't want to store it, they just want to bring it in and do the work.
And we can't pay it till it's installed?
Right.
I mean, I know
That's what I was
best
gonna
practice is that's what you do, but in this case, it's.
Yes, and I think they'll, if they're just needing to do a little bit of the punch list, they'll invoice us on June 30th and we'll, or by June 30th and we'll get it turned back around or whatnot, just to not to have to send that money back, but.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow, okay.
So did legal prepare or review the
Legal
MOU?
prepared the MOU, yes.
Okay, so it looks very similar to our past.
Yeah, so we started with the base of our MOU and then I sent it to legal and they said, that's all great, now we're gonna add
More boilerplate.
more
Pages of
of the legalese that needs to go in there for, to satisfy for liability and those sort of pieces that were added in,
There were
but,
some good ones.
yes. So,
And so you mentioned, I should have asked this the last one, but the safety, so forth, things that we provide, including, are they going to be doing Keenan's, like
Yes,
mandated
they'll-
reporting and all of that?
yes, they'll do the
Okay.
Keenans and
Yeah.
all that fun stuff,
Great.
so.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding with Flockworks for expanded learning opportunities, ELO program.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and any other discussion? Any public comment? Nope. Okay, roll call?
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And President Makala, just remember that the public comes from here too. So look at
Yes,
your,
it does. I'm sorry, thank you.
we've gotten so used to being
I
on
know, look
TV
at-
that.
Yep, it's true. Thank you. Okay, item 10.3, memorandum of understanding with Flockworks for after-school education and safety program, ACES.
Yes, I didn't prepare any additional presentation for this one or the next one because the MOUs are virtually the same, just with the individual programs. But we thought we would list each of the programs separately in case funding for that program went away, that we would still have something in place for the other programs.
Well, it's clear.
so.
Well, I just have a question. So Wendy, of course, will be a big part of making, I mean, she won't be part of the monthly meetings, but making sure the numbers are jiving and so that we're not caught with a
Yes, and that will.
budget problem.
Yes, that will come from also the invoicing. So Janet is reaching out to Wendy to try to set up a time to make sure that we get invoicing from Flockworks that's set up in a way that is conducive to our budgeting process, so we can give them very clear understanding of where we are with the budget and procedures that, yeah.
Good.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, may I have a motion?
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding with Flockworks for after-school education and safety program, ASES basis.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Renee, roll call?
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
President Makala,
Yes.
and Trustee Babcock.
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Moving on, item 10.4, Memorandum of Understanding with Flockworks for 21st Century High School After-School Safety and Enrichment for Teens Assets Program. And do you just want us to go
Yeah, I was going
forward?
to say I think I've said it all, but
Can I have a request, if I may. It'd be great, Janet, if you're willing to just tell us why you want to do this, and we know your goals, and just kind of, this is a big move, and I make these motions with a lot of enthusiasm, but cautiously. And these programs have been in place for a long time. There's a lot of kids, obviously, that depend on them, a lot of families, and I have no doubt that you and your team can undertake what's in front of you, but it'd just be great if you're willing to,
Yes, please.
yeah, that'd be great. Sorry to put you on the spot.
All right, that's why I came tonight, in case somebody wanted to spotlight this. Flockworks is at a point in which we believe the power of art and creativity that we've advocated for all these years, that we've demonstrated in our work at Dana Gray and Redwood School, to a in-depth level, to the way it's helped change culture in the school, to the way it's helped sustain everyone through the COVID years. All of that, we have found the way to do that with almost no resources. So here we're at this moment of time in which there is resource to help us do and carry through this broader sense that creative engagement is also part of wellness. Creative engagement is part of how we succeed in lives, whether it's through a music program in school that the child has better outcomes in their life. All that data is there. And in the course of our years of work, that data has increased. When I began Flockworks 17 years ago, those were the questions I asked. Does it matter? Does it make a difference? Now we have very conclusive, compelling evidence, particularly following this time of COVID, that it does, in fact. So the opportunity when Joe came and said, we would like to work with you more. You've been accomplishing magnificent things with no resources. We get to bring on two incredible teams of people who have been accomplishing very good things and become the support for them, become the umbrella for them, become the employer for them. And we do take that idea of employer very seriously. Although I can say, as a 67-year-old who hasn't been in the formal job market as an employee for years, it's the work that I've been doing of getting our personnel policy together with the help of, and all of the requirements that it entails. It's an eye-opener for me, honestly it is. And this issue is exactly where my board says, are we sure we want to do this? However, I look at it, and I've been an advocate that says this means we're going to be helping develop the creative learning workforce. We're going to be able to help position the power of art in our community in a deep way, because you affect the children, you affect their families, you connect out from there. We all know how that works, and that's what we've done over these 17 years. But this is a chance to say we have a very potent partner, an interested partner who believes in the same value set and the agenda that we have. And it has motivated us to take this huge step. And none of us are underestimating it. We are investing the money it takes to do it with expertise. So I'm working with some very good consultants on the HR issue. We're doing our due diligence on what pay service to use. How will that work? What will the onboarding look like? It's all in a spreadsheet and a timeline and all of that. So we are taking it very seriously, but I would not have taken this on. I would not have moved our organization in this direction if there were two things. One, the way that Joe and I are finding that we can partner and talk about these things and be straightforward, honest, community-minded. That's what we are both sharing. And then to bring the teams, Beth being one of them, that she's made your program here be one of the most outstanding programs of its nature in the state of California. So why should I worry about programmatically what I'm going to do? I'm worrying about how am I going to be that good employer and support that team, and then enlarge from there and bring broader creativity into the program. So I'm confident that this is a major undertaking, but also confident that if you bring the right resources to bear and you're mindful of your timeline and all of those things, that we will be ready for our July 1 transition into the employer for these folks. We're meeting with the Kudos staff next week to just begin to know. I'm very cautious of overtaxing them at this point because they don't belong to us, but they want to belong to us. And we want them to find us a good home, so find that we are a good home for them. And so I'm very cautiously finding the times that Beth and I work together, that Jenny and I work together, and then that we meet the staff. And that's probably my biggest concern, is these two existing successful programs. How do you bring them in and make the team of them feel like a part of our team? So it's not one that I've tackled yet. I'm tackling the practicals on the front side, but I am very conscious of that. It's something that Beth and I have talked a lot about, and that we are, as a group, thinking, we've been a very tight team organizationally, and how do we do that? I have a couple of consultants in mind to help me think that through as well, but right now I'm on the payroll on the HR side of things. Any other questions?
Well, I think it's great, and seeing the proposed pay for some of these, it's great to see them getting a little closer to what they deserve with their rates.
One thing I found out that I was interested in, that what they're being paid right now is it's market for a certain level of our community. I'm very enthusiastic to say these are the front line of dealing with our kids outside of the school hours. This is the front line of where so many of our kids are looking to, how do they connect out into the community? So the fact that we can say, let's stabilize this core, let's take them seriously, let's give them educational opportunities as we move forward. For me, that is one of the most potent ways that we can be there for our kids. And as we extend the learning opportunities, that'll involve more kids in having those kind of opportunities, not that 5-day-a-week kind of commitment that Kudos is primarily. But I think that the power of that is so significant that it is why we're doing this. And the creative forces that we will bring to bear, a little bit more on the art side, a little more on creative thinking and problem solving and team building and all those other things that we have stood for. That's what we want to deliver to the kids during school, after school, and in their life in the long run. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. That's going to be a great social emotional support for them too. Really, thank you. Okay. So we're going ahead with a motion on item 10.4.
I'll make a motion to approve item 10.4, Memorandum of Understanding with Flockworks for 21st Century High School After School Safety and Enrichment for Teens program.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. And any more discussion, questions?
Nothing to hold up the motion, but, so how long is the ELOP monies going for? It's unknown?
It's unknown. They have committed to continuing funding this, so.
'Cause I mean, that's the only thing I always worry about, you're revamping everything, but you can't walk away from the money that's available to make an enriching program, but, you know, you get it all
Right.
shifted. And I just note on this is the assets where we're at, one of the paraprofessionals is $12, but that's below the minimum wage, so I don't know if that's just a typo.
Must
Or
be.
that just changes, because it seems like both pay scales are quite different from assets to
Yeah.
ACES. But these are just draft.
Yes,
so
and there's
preliminary.
very draft,
Okay,
and
yeah.
and the assets has a lot of annual budget to work with, based off of
Oh,
that. So
gotcha, that's
there's-
why it's
there's
very
plenty
different, that's
of-
why it's a very different kind of a pay scale. Okay, that's my only,
And so we
sorry.
still have the assets grant going.
We do. We're waiting to hear, and we won't until I think next month, whether our 5-year renewal was approved. I would anticipate that it will be, though.
Yeah. And so that if, I won't say assume, but if we do get that funding is continuing, whether things happen with ELOP or not, so we still have a lot of the supports.
Yes, we still have, and we still have the ACES grant, so we would
Mhm.
have ACES and assets that would run a pared down version
The
if for some
normal,
reason
yeah.
ELOP went away, but
Gotcha.
I think that, I don't think it will. The amount may decrease a little bit as the state balances budgets and whatnot, but the hope is if there is a recession, that it's very short-lived and that it kind of turns around pretty quickly, so.
Yeah. Okay, and any public comment?
There's no public comment.
Okay, roll call?
Sorry, there is a motion on the floor, is that correct?
Yes, we got it.
Okay.
Scott did the motion, Jerry seconded.
Jerry seconded. All right. Sorry.
That's
Trustee
okay.
Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
And Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Didn't mean to be confusing. I just did president's training and they told me to always ask for discussion and comments after the motion, so I'm trying to do that. Okay.
That's my error.
No, it's okay. Okay, moving on, item 10.5, kudos for kids after-school program policies and procedures.
All right, so I might ask Beth for some help on this one as well, but per our MOU, whenever we change these documents, we have to have them approved by our board. So that's why they're before you. The updates to these documents are so that the middle school program can function a little closer to how the drop-in program for assets works. So it's trying to encourage more participation and active. It will actually actively expand our enrollment there a good bit in the program, I believe. And Beth may know the numbers a little better on that. And because we're also working, bringing in other community partners, so we've got the TRIO program, which is the trying to get students connected to, I'm going to call it Humboldt State, and it's not. It's Cal Poly Humboldt. Getting students connected up there to Cal Poly Humboldt. They're going to also partner with the program to start bringing in students. They have been working with middle school students, but this formalizes it a little bit more. And I know there was a question on the program schedule about the last 20 minutes. It is there for program cleanup and for dismissal. Students really start to funnel out by about 5:30 or so. So, did I miss anything, Beth, or was that?
Just have one thing to say. So we had asked that this be approved for, you know, like immediately so that we can start to implement some of these things, but also that it would just carry over for the next school year so it doesn't have to come back to you again. And this is specific to the middle school at this moment because the ELO program doesn't require the attendance, but the ACES program does require the 5-day a week. That's not going to change. So is there questions about that?
Well, that was kind of what I was thinking in my head, that I'm blurring those two, because I know that's a huge requirement with the ACES. So for this, through the end of this school year, you're going to have to run it as an ACES, but then you're thinking next year you'll be able to be more like an asset or ELOP.
It will
plan
be
where
more that way,
flexible.
but we would like to go ahead and start to make that transition now. We still have an attendance requirement, but that is basically that the parents understand that there's an attendance requirement of 3 days a week. But if they want to just come 1 or 2 days to get assistance or to participate in one specific thing, then it would act more like the assets program, even though we would still be, you know, expecting. We aren't getting to our targeted attendance numbers because the students really aren't coming the 3 days a week. And we aren't dropping students because we don't have a big waiting list at the middle school. So we feel like going this way, the kids will be able to, you know, if they're in trio, they will get counted for attendance for that day. If they're waiting for soccer practice to happen, they can come and be part of Kudos. So basically all we're asking for is we do have to have that signed registration form. So we're just asking for that registration form, and then we'll keep track of attendance no matter how many days they come. And that will also save us making the phone calls over and over and over again saying your student's not coming 3 days a week. Because it really, at the middle school, they vote with their feet. If they like what they're doing, they'll come. If they don't, they won't. And so, you know, it just makes it more of an opportunity for the teachers to say, you need help with your homework and math. You know, the same with assets. I need to go to assets today because I need help with my math. Same at the middle school. I need help with my math. The teacher says, go to Kudos and get some help with your math from the math teacher there. And that's also giving us an opportunity to really be intentional about what we're looking for in our staff. Like, we need to fill in the role of math support, or we need to fill in the role of humanities support, that kind of thing.
And it doesn't endanger our ACES funding to do it, yeah.
It's written into the ACES that they'll have a 3 day a week, so
Right.
basically if we get a kid who happens to drop in 3 days a week, and then, you know, we can count them till.
I gotcha.
Right, really what we're shooting for at all 3 sites is the target attendance number in order to not take a grant reduction. So that's what we're trying to bolster by
Right.
going this
Yeah.
direction.
Well, seems like a good strategy. Any other questions? Public
So
comment?
then this
Oh,
probably shouldn't say 23, 24 then, right?
Oh, and it should be for this school year starting, yeah.
So
For immediate
it's-
implementation.
And it says 23, 24.
23 and 24.
Well, there we go.
25.
Um,
Because it doesn't say anything on the actual document.
Oh, it doesn't. I can't open it for some reason. Things
It
won't
doesn't have a
open.
date
Oh, it
on the
doesn't.
actual
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
procedures, just
written
on the
on
cover
the agenda.
page.
So would we do a motion? Should we change that then to,
I would think so, yes,
20? Yeah.
just to be consistent and make sure.
So the cover sheet does say 22, 23.
Right.
And then, so we want to say both 22, 23, and 23, 22, 24. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the Kudos for Kids After School Program policies and procedures for 22, 23, and 23, 24.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Public comment? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
President Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Renee. Okay, item 10.6, second interim report and certification.
Okay, so most of what I was going to say, Joe's already said.
Sorry. Let's do it again.
So you're going to have to hear it again, sorry. So there is more uncertainty between, we think, between the January budget proposal and the May proposal because there's so much uncertainty in the economy. A lot of people are still saying that there's a good potential for some recession, whether it's mild or long, nobody seems to agree. And as he mentioned, the tax filing has been extended till October, so that means the state is going to put a budget out that they really have no idea if it's going to be sensible or not. So I think there's a pretty reasonable chance that we're going to see a mid-year adjustment of some sort, although they do have a lot of reserves that they might be able to stick to what they do, but that would impact out years then. So something's going to probably be impacted. Right now, the COLA we're looking at, and again, you already said this, is 8.13. The LAO, Legislative Analyst's Office, thinks that it's quite possible that they won't be able to hold that, but again, the governor might just want to use the reserves to go ahead and make that happen so that he doesn't have to pull it back. They do drop to about 3.5% in the 2 out years, so the increase is, we're going to see a decrease in the increase over the next year, no matter what next year is. And so that's going to be, and I have that worked into the assumptions for our out years. And let's see, we've started working on budgeting some of the newer resources. There were a lot of them, and we've started putting some amounts in there, but we're still carrying a lot of that in our ending fund balances because we haven't really completely developed a plan, and I don't like to just plunk them into a placeholder to have them budgeted, but we've started showing some of them, and you'll see that we are deficit spending in the out years in the third year out, and that's mostly because we are using up some of the things that we had in reserves. Some of that is from that. Some of that is from the regular ongoing resources. Now that we don't have all these big one-time monies coming in, we're going to be relying on our usual streams of cash. And so when you look at the assumptions, you'll see that in the third year, and I think that's on page 69 of the PDF, that our LCFF revenue actually goes down. And that's because our rolling average of attendance is going to catch up to us, and so we'll be impacted downward a little bit actually in actual dollars, even though there is still a COLA calculated. The enrollment numbers, one thing that's good is the enrollment numbers that we started the year with, when I put this together, had gone down by a fair bit. But there's a new housing development, low-income housing development, that a lot of low-income and homeless families have been moved into in the last few weeks. So we're seeing an uptick from that, so we're almost back to the number that we had in October. So that's encouraging. So those out years may actually end up looking a little better. And as, again, Joe mentioned, we have better reserves than I can ever recall in even in my years as a board member and before that. And so the board is to be commended for having that long-term vision for being able to maintain things and being able to have a soft landing should the bottom fall out of things. So I feel so much better than in years past. So there wasn't anything specific. There weren't any huge changes from first interim to second, there are some resources that we had a better idea of what we were getting, so we've adjusted those. Staffing is settling out. From then, we know who we have, who we don't have, and anything that was changing has been changed. And again, you can see the assumptions that are built in. You know, when you look at the difference between the restricted and the unrestricted reserves, you'll see that we've moved a lot of staffing from the restricted side. These are all the positions that have been funded with COVID relief money, is now going to be moved into supplemental concentration. So that's all moving over to the unrestricted side. And other than that, not anything real significant that we're aware of yet. You know, we'll just wait till May and see what they say and realize that that could also change. So, yeah. So did you have any questions, or was there anything in particular you wanted to look at?
I just can't wrap my head around the ADA. So we were kind of held harmless for a couple of years, and so is there still a remnants of that?
So
or how is it
we're
being
always
assessed?
kind of held harmless. You can always use your actual or the prior year if the prior year is higher. They also did a little thing where they went back a couple of years and made that the new rolling average. If it was better, it's pretty convoluted, and I just put the numbers in and let it go. But with those going away, that's why we kind of see this drop off in the third year, because it catches up with where our actual ADA is. This year, there's been a lot of illness, so our ADA is going to be probably a little below, although it hasn't been as bad as I thought overall. So we're with this new influx, I'm hoping that it'll hold a little better, and that out year might actually end up looking a little better by the time we get to May.
Because I was reading an article saying whatever your attendance is in August, it's going to get worse. So I'm just curious if there's any like snapshots of what that looks like. That's the best student.
No, we are required. There are time frames during which there's called P1, period
Right.
1, and period
But
2.
this is-
P2 is the one, and that is always
The one,
worse
the number.
than August.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, like, if that's, so I was just curious if it's just like an internal exercise, what does August look like? Is it way declined than an average August, like this year, last year? To know like where if we're
Well, again, it's also
improving
a product of the enrollment. So if the enrollment changes, then the ADA is going to change
right.
also. If the enrollment stays steady, and I usually, at first interim, I have a 5-year rolling average of my own that I look at and look at which part of the year the changes happen, and I adjust it based on that. So I try to do an analysis that takes that into account. I don't just look at August and say, oh, here we are. And
Right, I was just thinking, just
Yeah.
as it's very rudimentary exercise. And then Prop 28, I keep asking about this. Will we know anything about that money for new art in May? Or that's the one that
Oh.
they're kind of putting aside? Or
that's 1% of Prop 98, is that right? No, we don't.
you won't know maybe May, or we won't, may not
Maybe
know.
May.
Maybe May, if we're lucky.
Yeah.
They might linger it on. Okay. That's it. Thanks.
So Wendy, with the new development in town, are these families they have addresses now, or these were kids that were not coming and now are coming?
Well, some of them actually have moved here from Willits.
Okay.
The area.
So
Yeah.
some of them are coming from out of town.
There are agencies that are helping them
Housing them.
transition to
Okay.
this housing. So hopefully they'll stay.
Yeah, that's great. Any other questions? No, well, with all this uncertainty, you certainly have your work cut out for you. Thank you for sticking around. Not fun. Okay, may I have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve item 10.6, the second interim report and certification.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion, questions, public comment? Nope, okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
President Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, I think we have a request from our student
Oh, gosh,
representative.
Joe, I'm so sorry. It's no problem. You should leave. I'm going to invite you to leave.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Have a great night. I enjoyed the Blue Door and the Flockworks presentations, though. That was really
Awesome.
informative. So
Yeah, they were great.
see you
I'm really
another
sorry.
time. It's okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item 10.7, Measure B bond audit for the year ending June 30th, 2022.
Okay, this is the rest of the document that I neglected to include last month, so again, my apologies. They were all named the same thing, and I just went drag, drop, go, and didn't realize it was just the letter on the last one. So this is the bond audit from 21-22. Again, there was not a lot of activity yet, so there's not a whole lot here, and so it's really good that there were no findings or issues because there wasn't much there to find. This is your opportunity to accept it or ask questions.
Questions?
It was very benign.
It was. Indeed. Okay, may I have a motion?
I move to approve Measure B bond audit for the year ending June 30th, 22.
Thank you. And
Or
a
actually
second?
21.
Oh.
Maybe.
21-22.
21,
Okay.
yeah.
It has both dates on the last page.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further questions? Public comment?
No.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
President Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you. All right, does anybody need a break? We're good? Okay, move forward. Item 10.8, Home to School Transportation Plan.
Okay, so the state provided us additional funding this year for transportation. That's the first time in a decade or longer, at least a decade, right, that we've gotten new funding for transportation.
Oh, way more than that.
It's way more, yeah. So it's been a while. So of course, with new funding, they want a new plan because that's the state. So this plan just really outlines the really basic transportation services we offer to our students. Ran through with Wendy and Barry, and they had their input, but it's just try to keep it simple. And with the approval of this, we had to have it approved by April 1st in order to receive the funds. So.
And I think the thinking behind having to have a plan was for districts that were not providing home to school transportation because there were a lot of them. And what this does is brings us up to funding 60% of our cost
Wow.
from 40%.
Okay. Not nothing.
It's a
Okay.
50% increase, Wendy.
That's a good positive way to look at
That's
it.
statistics for you.
So could you explain to me how the two bus stops at either end of town that you kind of have drop off a group of kids and they have to get picked up? I mean, is that actually working?
I think so. Yeah, in talking with Barry about it, it seems like it's effective because most other kids are within walking distance. If you're out and about in the morning, I see a lot of kiddos who are walking, and so I think it's working out pretty well. We haven't had any concerns or complaints that I'm aware of with it. And I think a large part of that is that all of our TK kiddos in town or out of town, they get bus service home. So we don't have littles that are out walking.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? No. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt item 10.8, the home to school transportation plan.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
And discussion, comments, public comment?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Okay, may I have not a motion, roll call, please.
President Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you. Item 10.9, Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials, AMIM, discretionary block grant.
So, contrary to the name of this grant, the district was encouraged by the legislature to use the funds to meet any of the needs that, actually, it's not any need, but it's pretty widely open to use for anything from pensions all the way to instructional materials to whatever it is that we needed to work on. So with our adoptions that we have, or our pilots that we have out there for the science and social studies adoption, those are going to be pretty expensive. Science especially is a pretty expensive program to bring in. So we're planning to use these funds to be able to do that. And then we also put some money in for our libraries. We want to purchase some books focusing on expanding cultural awareness in languages other than English or bilingual text. And the stated goal of this is a stated goal of this funding through the legislature, and it's also been echoed by our librarians that they need some of these additional materials. So we set aside a nice healthy amount that should fund our libraries at our sites to be able to really improve the collections there. And finally, we're planning to use funds from Prop 28 to support art and music teachers so that we're not forgetting about the art and music part of it.
Excellent. Any questions?
Well, my only comment was with Flockworks taking over all the after-school stuff, the need for materials I know that's different funding, but if art's going to become more of the culture of the district, at least after school, it may bleed into our day-to-day as well, and just want to make sure there's money out there for that.
There is, and anything that Flockworks is working with after school, the ELOP, as you saw, has a good bit of latitude in it right now as well. So.
And we could have used these funds for pension, really?
For pension relief, yeah.
That's
We
amazing.
could have done a buy down that way. I know of some districts that chose to use the funds for that as well.
Good for you for keeping it focused on
Yeah.
the kids. That's got to be hard.
It was.
I
It's hard
bet.
to-
No,
especially with the
that's
increase
yeah,
in the
that's
in-
difficult.
Mhm.
and where we're going.
Yeah.
But yeah, the curriculum was delayed probably due to financial reasons. And then it looks like potentially this will come before us again if they don't reduce it, because that's what's on our advocacy with legislative action, is that they're thinking of reducing this, but we don't know that 100%.
Correct, and we budgeted this at what would be the reduced amount.
Okay.
So that if we have more, then great, we'll plan how to spend the rest of that, but we didn't want to, like I say, we tried to stay pretty conservative with that.
Very wise. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, may I have a motion?
I move to approve the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials, AMIM, discretionary block grant.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. And any more questions, discussion, public comment?
No.
There's none.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
President Makla?
Yes,
And Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
thank you, Renee. Okay, item 10.10, electric school bus purchase plan.
All right, so we're very excited that we have been awarded grants from the California Hybrid Voucher Incentive Program. Sorry, I had to look up what HVIP program was. And it will provide a majority of the funding for 6 new electric buses. So the grant provides around I think it is exactly $375,000 per bus. The total is about $385,000 for purchase, and then there's taxes on top of that because it's that type of purchase. So looking at that, the total general fund contribution would be about $237,000, which is quite a good deal to get $2.4 million worth of vehicles. The pricing for these buses came from a piggyback bid that was sought out by another public agency. So if you saw like I think it was Waterford Unified, I think was the name that was on there. They're the first ones that happen to have applied in this.
I was wondering about that.
Yes, yeah. So we don't have to go through a formal bid process because it's really, they're almost a sole source provider as well. You know, there's only a couple of companies making these buses out there. I will say we're pretty excited in talking with Barry about them, and he's talked to other transportation managers. I have my own experience with the electric buses as well. Students come in a lot more regulated coming off these buses because they're a lot quieter, just going around the streets and everything, so they're not yelling at each other over the drone of a diesel engine in the back, that kind of thing. Our eligibility for the grant was based on the age of our existing buses. So the 6 that we have were old enough to qualify. And talking to Barry, he's like, and the reality is in a couple of years, they would have required us to put scrubbers on these, which basically, they're terrible. The scrubbers are really expensive. They break down all the time, causing the bus to be inoperable.
What's a scrubber?
It basically sits between the exhaust and the engine and pulls out particulate, and then you have to plug it in at night so that it sits there and you know, incinerates the particulate, and then you have to clean them out, and then it adds so many maintenance steps, and I've had them in other districts, they have broken down consistently. It's the only thing they've done consistently, to be honest. So with all of those things combining together, we thought it was really great to move forward with the electric buses. We will still maintain 3 buses. We'll have 2 diesel powered and 1 propane powered. And these will be used for out of town trips, and you know, for any of those routes where we're not sure if an electric's going to do it, but the electric buses will service all of our routes without needing to be recharged in the day to do both routes. So I think we're in pretty good shape that way, and pretty excited to see them come down.
So is this different? This has come up before.
We were granted a bus years ago.
Yeah.
We are still waiting for the bus. We are still going to get the bus.
Oh, okay. So this is an addition.
This is an addition,
Okay.
right, yes, because that's what I kept saying was, where's the one we were already awarded? And Barry has submitted a grant for the charging unit that will have to be installed at the bus barn. So, and there's, the state is, got a lot of grant programs for that sort of thing, so we're hoping that we'll qualify for that.
We also, the buses themselves come with a 1-year warranty for anything that goes wrong with them right out of the gate. The maintenance in general is pretty low on these. You know, it's mostly around the wheels and brakes and that sort of thing, and not too much internally, because I know from my experience with them, they have it labeled. They say if it's like an orange cable, you don't touch it as the maintenance person. So it's pretty easy to see the parts you don't touch, and it's a majority of when you pop the back open, you go, oh, can't touch any of that, great. Okay. So the manufacturer will also provide in-service for our staff. They come out and they do a really nice job of walking them all through. This is what your inspection would look like. This is, you know, your 45-day inspection needs to look at these points, and kind of if there's anything that's different on the buses. Though, to be honest, outside of seeing a green stripe on them, you won't notice any difference if they're parked. They look exactly like, very similar to the buses we have.
It'd be fun to go on a loop with the bus driver, just to hear the difference, to see if they're as bouncy in the back as the diesel. But my question is, and I think I emailed you, is what are we doing with our old buses?
Right.
What's the
That was my
disposal of
next
that?
Yes. So
And
we
are
have
we
to
housing all these? Where are we housing all these?
Yes. So we have, we do have to, as a requirement of the grant, to scrap our existing buses. And that's the really hard part for me, because, and again, when you see the bus itself, you're going, it's not that different. Why can't they retrofit these buses as opposed to a scrapping it? But that's philosophical, and I am not the person controlling the purse strings on this. So, and I mean, scrap to the point where we have to send them pictures of like holes drilled through the block of the motor.
Really?
That kind of thing. They're very intense about.
What does that cost, or what is the process to scrap a bus?
You take it to a scrap yard, and they take whatever they need.
So is it free because it's all scrap metal?
Generally, we'll actually get a little tiny bit of money back, has been my experience, but it's not.
It's not like a portable.
No.
Getting rid of a portable.
No, it's not like that. But I think
Maybe a laptop cart.
Yeah.
yeah, in my previous district, I think we got about $1,000 for each bus that we scrapped. So it was something.
Okay.
And we do have room in the yard for these buses. And as Wendy said, we've written a grant to fund the installation of the charging stations, and that should hopefully have it set up so that we could do all of the buses at the same time, charging overnight or whatnot. So,
And we have enough power infrastructure at the bus barn for that?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Do you know where they'll locate those?
I don't know. Barry has mapped it all out.
Oh, he's got it all
It was a
figured.
part of the grant, was having to show where you think they would go and
Yeah.
what you would need for it. So
How many bus routes do we have?
we run
3 primary, and then the sped.
So we have 4 bus routes and, okay.
So 6 buses, 4 bus routes. So
When they go
one-
out on 45-day inspection, sometimes with our, they can be out for a little while if there's an issue that needs to be fixed.
Actually, 4 plus the sped run, I think.
Okay.
So
Isn't
you
it
have
1 south,
north
1 out,
south,
and
yeah.
2 north, and then the sped run?
Okay.
And these are all the same size, all big, because I noticed some of our buses are shorter than others, and
Yeah, the ones we're ordering will all be the same standard
school bus size.
school bus size, big school bus size. And then the one that we're waiting on from the old grant is to replace the special education bus with the lift.
And then there's room at the barn for all the vans we're getting too, right?
Yes.
All right, well.
Yeah, it's gonna be a busy place over there. Might have to play some car lot Jenga some days to kind of get them out, but.
And then the charging, the cost of charging is going to offset what you would normally be paying out in oil and maintenance of
Oil,
a bus.
gas,
Yeah, so it's-
I don't know if these have regenerative charging when you take your foot off the gas, but some vehicles actually charge themselves, which saves you in brakes. We're gonna certainly save on the diesel mechanic,
yeah.
I
so.
will tell you, the one area, driving an electric car, the tires tend to go faster with
Tires,
the electric
yeah.
vehicles.
Really?
Yeah, they're heavier,
Sometimes they have no spare.
so
Do you have a spare?
I do not.
Yeah, that's the other trick. Hopefully these have spares.
It's not quite the same
I'm
changing out
gonna
on
say
the
no.
bus. Yeah.
We
Can't
dig-
imagine.
We digress.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Nope. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item 10.10, electric school bus purchase plan.
Okay, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any more discussion, questions? Any public comment?
There is none.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
President Makla,
Yes.
and Trustee Babcock.
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, again, I'll ask, nobody needs a break? We can keep going? Nope. Okay. Item 10.11, Transportation Supervisor Job Description and Salary Schedule.
Right, so we brought this forward. We just made a minor change to the days of service, which also affected then the salary schedule, to more accurately reflect the needs of the district. And I think the position was, in the past, was created to fit a person rather than the position being the position meeting the needs of the district. So we're just adjusting that while we have the opportunity to, and then move forward with it.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Any public comment? Okay, may I have a motion?
I move to approve the transportation supervisor job description and salary schedule.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And again, no discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
President Makla,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
and Trustee Schneider.
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you. Item 10.12, Playground Equipment Purchase for Dana Gray Elementary.
All right. So as we talked about with our ELOP plan, we've secured using that funding to put in a new playground at Dana Gray. We did have Mrs. Alexander send out surveys to students. She sought staff input on what should be included for the update. And then I think what we got from them really kind of met and even exceeded some of those expectations. We'll see that in just a minute here. We did seek out 2 bids. While the bid I'm recommending is higher of the 2, if the product meets the campus needs and the desires that the students expressed more appropriately, It also included the demolition of old equipment and the installation of the new equipment, which weren't as well outlined on the previous quote, or the competing quote there. The project does not need to pass through DSA, as the area already has a path of travel, and that would be the only thing that DSA would review on these things.
Oh.
So, we want to take a look. We have a little fly-through video here of what the playground will look like. It is. I can see this being the very popular feature
Yeah.
with this.
Is that the zip line? Like a zip
Yeah,
line? It's a long one.
it really is.
In the virtual. I mean, if you can hang that long.
Well, it's on it's a swing if you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they would
Be sitting.
sitting or
Okay.
being pushed or,
Lots of slides, that's nice.
Yep.
So
How do you do that then?
I want to know if Miss Alexander got to go to one of these playgrounds and play on every item herself to try them out.
Sure, it's gonna work.
Right.
Personally picked.
Because is it, I mean, double the size of Redwood, like that center area? I mean, I just worry about being able to see everyone, because I've been yard duty as a parent, and it's a very busy place.
It is.
So having to like watch,
I think it should be
It is.
pretty
comparable.
comparable, yeah. And if you'll notice with our, well, I think it zooms in on the swings in a second, but there are some accessible swings for our students who might have some mobility needs or sensory needs that,
Accommodating.
yes. And that was the thing they got tired of me saying again and again. I was like, it has to be accessible.
Fully accommodating.
Yes.
Well, and it's nice because you can see through so much of it. It's not like there's any big blocking area.
Oh, the kids find the little spot that they.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll exploit it, I'm sure, but.
So Wiggly Giggly is going to be no more.
I was gonna say, you're gonna have a line after school
I
waiting
think
for.
so. I think we will have it'll be popular on the weekends as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
It is, it's exciting to be able to have the funding to be able to provide this for our students. Though, and speaking with Mrs. Alexander, when she said that was, the playground that's in place is the same playground she played on whenever she came through school. And I'm sure there's other experiences like that in this room. So it's just one of those, it's really nice to be able to modernize that and bring it up to what our students want without taking away many of the opportunities that they currently enjoy, because it's very sturdy equipment we have over there. So I think this will be a great replacement for that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Comments from public? Okay, Beth? Oh, I guess I need to read this. Sorry.
I have to make the comment that I saw this earlier from Kathy in the video, and I had just done a survey with the Kudos kids about what was missing, and I got a whole bunch of them that said slides. And so they're going to be very excited.
yeah.
I'm very excited
And they
that this
look like
is
really fun
happening.
ones,
And I think
yeah.
it's a really great use of the ELO program money.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, may I have a motion?
I move to approve the playground equipment purchase for Dana Gray Elementary.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion?
I did have one quick question. The ground covering is going to be,
So we looked at the rubberized material, and then we went to Mendocino and saw what it kind of looked like at the
Chunky.
Canyon there, and they said, don't do it in this
Oh,
environment.
interesting.
It's
Yeah.
not good. So
So
it'll be the
wood chip.
wood chip.
Wood chips,
like we've
but
already
the
got.
small,
Yeah.
wood chips, yeah.
thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
that stuff doesn't hold up well here. Okay, roll call, please.
Yes. Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
President Makala?
Yes,
And Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
The motion carries.
thank you. Okay, item 10.14, reduction for particular kinds of service.
Skipped one.
You missed one.
10.13.
10.13.
Oh, how did I set, mine says, okay. Mine is not on here, sorry, I'll go here. Out-of-state conference attendance requests.
Yes. So we have Mrs. Alexander and Mrs. Viero are requesting to attend the Region 4 AXA conference in Reno. The cost of lodging for the conference is covered by the region, thanks to Ms. Vieira's service to AXA Region 4.
That's great.
So a good conference, and they usually bring some really nice presenters there, and it's a pretty intimate setting. Most of the presentations happen in a room about this size, so that there's have a lot of interaction with the presenters and whatnot. So.
Okay. Any questions?
So, while I really appreciate their desire not to spend, is it really like they're not going to reimburse for any food? I mean, they're driving 6 hours. They're going to, I mean, I feel like everyone's trying to be conscious. Well, I just want to make sure they get reimbursed for.
Sure, and they'll be eligible for the reimbursement for sure with it. I have to push the administrators a little bit around that, so I'll talk to them and make sure that they're reimbursing actual costs.
Okay.
Though they do tend to provide as much food as they can at these things as a part of
It's
the
just a long trip, and
Yeah.
you know, I
For
just
sure.
I don't want them to feel like we're so cheap. We don't want to let them stop and get a cheeseburger or salad or whatever they're going to get on the way.
Sure.
And also, there's just 2 of them here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah, the other one that we had
Already approved.
talked about approving will wait until
Okay.
next month to
Okay.
bring around, because we didn't get the backup materials.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions? Do we have public comment?
No.
May I have a motion?
I move to approve the out-of-state conference attendance requests.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And roll call, please.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And President Makala?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you.
So just a clarifying question. I thought we approved the Colorado trip. Is this the second one?
This would be the second one.
Okay,
this summer,
gotcha. I was
yes.
just thinking, okay.
Oh.
This was a new one. Yep, okay.
Okay, now, item 10.14, reduction for particular kinds of service. Sorry.
All right, so for the reduction in particular kinds of service, our independent study program for grades 2 through 8 has not been fully utilized. We've only maintained maybe, I think the highest we had was maybe 8 students, and that didn't last very long for a program with a 0.6 that can be up to 14 students. And so it's just not been very beneficial. Even there's not really been many students who've stayed in it all year long. So I think it's kind of a remnant of our COVID response. It's just not been well utilized, so I'm recommending that we reduce the position and get rid of that portion of the program at this time. And so that would be a reduction of a 0.6 FTE.
So what happens to the kids that do need independent study for grades 2 through 8?
So we currently will have short-term independent study, which will allow up to 14 days in a school year. So they still have that option will be in place. It's the long-term, year-long kind of program. We'll have to talk about what options might exist. I think it's the rare case that really needs it for that long. And so we'll look at it on a case-by-case basis. It is still allowable under our board policy. We're not changing that. It's just this program, I can't leave a program running that's not really being utilized to the level it needs to. So.
Right. It seems like it's usually pretty rare that somebody that age needs to be out of the school setting for that long unless they're sick, and of course we still have home hospital.
We do.
Yeah.
We do have some options if there are disabilities or sickness involved.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? May I have a motion?
I move to approve the resolution regarding a certificated reduction in force, particular kind of service.
Thank you. In a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any more discussion, questions? Public comment?
Yep.
Okay, roll call, please.
President Makla,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, we're on to information and discussion. Item 11.1, FUSD Board Bylaw Review. We had Bylaw 9100, Organization, Bylaw 9110, Terms of Office, 9121, President, 9122, Secretary, and 9123, Clerk. Did anybody read or find anything in there that jumped out, or?
Well, we're kind of not doing something.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Have we elected a clerk?
Well,
Well,
I
that's
just wanted to
what
point
I-
out in the first bylaw, it says elect the president and a clerk and/or vice president. And I think that, I don't know if we can solve that problem by renaming bylaw 9123 to vice president / clerk. That's just a thought.
Or deleting, because in that
Yeah.
clerk bylaw, it says that about, like, someone different than the VP and the president. But then what's interesting is in our organizational meeting, the registry with the Secretary of State we definitely have the secretary being Superintendent Aldridge, but there really isn't, we haven't really appointed a clerk, because that's kind of like someone that would be available to sign paperwork
Right.
or act as presiding over a meeting if the VP and the president were there. So it's, I don't know, there's all these things that are not,
And I would say
Clear.
clerk is mentioned in Ed Code and some legal standards. Vice president is not. So it's, vice president is a nice to have, but it's not a have to have when it comes to the whole process, whereas the clerk is, there are actual legal references to who's the clerk of the board.
So should we rename that position?
I think that would make sense. So would you like us to bring forward a draft of that
How's everybody? Yeah? I think
review?
so.
Okay.
meaning that we're not going to have a VP, we're going to have a clerk.
We'll rename the position.
That's the easiest way to clear it up, because
Well, if
otherwise, because the first bylaw is fine, because it says and or,
Mhm.
but then like you said, the clerk says it's not the VP.
Right. So
I mean,
we'll
we
make
could
those
say,
changes.
we could say vice president / clerk. They could be,
One and the same.
yeah.
And that's pretty typical of how most,
Okay.
So that would
Most
seem
boards
like
I've
it'd be
seen use
easier.
That'd be my preference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just have an extra.
Just how we
an extra
tend to
title.
do how this
Right.
board tends to do things,
I
not having a
agree.
VP may. We'll have to look at our handbook and our governance. and all that
Agreed.
stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That was what I was going to point out as well. Is there anything else
That's all.
in those? Okay, let's move on to 11.2, recommended update board policy 0415, equity. We're still working on our equity policy and meeting. I don't know if it's too soon to talk about setting another workshop date.
I would really like to try to
Find
secure
somebody.
someone and then work from that date.
Okay.
So I'll let you know after my meeting next week with MCOE. Hopefully we'll have some motion for it and I can get in touch with someone.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I don't want the year to get away from us on it. Yes.
I made a boo-boo. I was gonna bring up something on one of the action items. I just wanna bring it up
Oh,
now, whether
I'm
we
sorry.
wanna do anything about it. And that's the playground equipment and the performance bond. There is no performance bond. It's an additional cost of, 2.5% of the contract
2.5%.
price? And that's basically an insurance policy that if the contractor gets started and flakes out, then the bonding company comes in and finishes the job.
Mhm.
So it's just peace of mind, but sorry, I had it on my notes and I forgot to mention it.
Okay, thank you. No, good point. Okay, so will you let us know, and I don't want the year to get away from us and
Yes.
not get something and,
Did you want to revisit that, Jerry?
I was just, well, when you was done talking, I was gonna say, can we go back to that? Because I'd be interested to hear more about that.
We could certainly entertain an amended motion to add that contingency in, if you think that's a good idea, Jerry.
I've never done a public works project for the state or for the county that they didn't require a performance bond.
Okay.
So it's just, you're putting total pay, I mean, this is probably a perfectly reputable company.
It is the same contractor that we observed who installed our shade structures. that we would be working with, so we do have faith in them, but I still think it's a good idea that we have an insurance policy there if that person.
But what is that, 2.5% of three six?
$7,500, isn't it?
Oh, okay. That's-
Is what?
Is that right?
It'd be about 7,000, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
7,000.
So on a project that large, I think that's,
Yeah. But could we approve that next time or no?
You need it now, right?
Because we're way past, I don't know if
Yeah, well,
procedurally we're kind of way off.
Same night.
I think at this point we can go back and amend
Okay.
the
Yeah.
motion to include the performance bond. The only reason I would suggest that is because if we want to try to get this done by the end of June.
Right.
That would, another security for it.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
going to be my question.
need
It's
to get it
also
ordered,
security
yeah.
that someone else would pick it up,
Hopefully,
maybe.
hopefully in time.
Yeah, but do you even have somebody else? I mean, how does that work?
They have to go out and find another builder to
They
finish it.
do.
Yeah, we want it on
Oh,
site by the general
okay.
went bankrupt, I think.
Yeah, I think 75, yeah.
And they have to agree to it?
They already did. I called and asked them what it
They-
would cost. That's how we know it's
They just pass the
2.5%.
cost along to us, they don't care.
Yeah.
Right, they will charge us the cost of
Mhm.
it.
Okay.
So
So
I think,
we'll
did I make that
you
motion?
did make that
Yes, you
motion,
did.
so we'll
Okay.
amend that.
So I will amend my motion for the playground equipment purchase to Dana Gray Elementary to have the performance bond included.
Thank you. And Scott, you seconded?
Yes.
Okay.
Second the amended motion.
And we'll do roll call once more.
Discussion.
I thought we just did that. Figured we were done. Do we want
Well,
more
I just,
discussion?
because we're moving around, I
Yeah.
think we need to
Okay.
pause and make sure everybody's.
Any more discussion?
Well, we're not live though, are
so we're just recording.
Okay.
Better to be over.
we? Has anyone asked, I guess there's no peeps out there wondering why we're not live? on the
We
board?
are.
No, we're
We
live.
are
Oh, we're
live.
we are live.
Okay, great.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Don't
we've
know when
been
that
live.
started.
I've been
Good.
hearing from people.
We've been live
Oh,
for
good.
quite a while,
Uh-oh.
since
Hopefully fans.
Okay.
before reports.
And no public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. And so roll call once more.
Okay. Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
President Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider.
Yes.
The amended motion carries.
Thank
Okay.
you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Better late than never, I guess.
8:27.
Well, it'd been horrible if it's gone
Happen
awry.
Later.
Yep. Okay, 11.3, the governance calendar. We were looking at the change to use the different template.
Can I just make one comment on the prior
Oh,
11.2? So it was a totally different equity policy. So I didn't have any problem with this one, but it was really different from
I
the one
took
we've been
out,
looking at the last
I
2
kind
months.
of chopped out a lot,
Okay.
but I was trying to use some feedback that I had gotten, just to make sure that it was as streamlined as possible, that it really clearly states where we want to go as a district.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
I figured strip it down, and then if we want to add things back in, then we can do that in the by and by in our next workshop.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Nope. Okay, governance calendar. We were just discussing that. Do we need to put that on action if we're going to change that template, or is that just a simple thing?
I think that's just the board's preference.
That's just
however they
board
would like it.
preference.
And so we talked about it at the workshop. We've had the two to look at. Are we wanting to change, or do we want to stay with the old template?
This one is the new, right? What we're looking at
Yes.
attached. And I
Yeah,
think the request was to have it in a school year calendar, because I think in the old days it was January. So it starts in July. And I don't know if, did they speak on this in your board workshop?
Mm-mm.
Because when I had attended, they were just saying that this truly is how, it's an internal piece for staff, but it's
Mhm.
also for the public as well to know what type of topics we hear in each month, so that we're not being, we're being mindful of our time and theirs, and we're not being reacting to outside needs.
Mhm.
But this is kind of how we pace our calendar, so people know, you know, what topics would be heard when.
Yeah.
So it's good to have it be transparent.
So do we want to make that change?
Well, I think we've got so many versions. I
We
mean,
do have.
Renee might be using one version, but I know over my time on the board, there's been lots of versions.
Mm-hmm.
No, I created this document.
No, I mean, okay,
Sorry. That's not what you meant.
no, but that's okay.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Well, we had the other one where there was some overlapping with the months, where you could do something in March, or maybe it went over to April, or you did both. So
I think this
that's,
is great.
This looks great.
Yeah, I
okay,
agree. I think it seems very clear.
okay, good. Thank you, Renee.
And my hope is also for the admin team to have a very similar structure for things that come up in their regular role, so it kind of mirrors the same kind of thing, and we'll have some cues in there for them as well.
Great.
So.
Right.
Okay, thank you. So governance handbook, we talked about at our workshop about this, that we wanted to make things a bit more concise. There was a lot of overlap of topics. I haven't had a chance to do anything with that. I could work on that and have it done this weekend if we wanted to put it on. Do we need to take action on this? We don't, right? So I can just send out.
We did and sign, don't we sign this?
We do sign it.
Yes.
We do, but we don't have to do it.
And there's a copy in all of your binders,
Yeah.
the way it is right now.
So,
I don't think it's rushed to do it next week.
No, I don't
Okay.
think so either. I just think that we could probably make it more condensed, that we can bring it to a meeting
Right.
at a site. The big points of what people, like maybe the shortfalls of what people think our role is, like have that be the highlight. Because it doesn't need to have all of our procedures and all of our,
We need a one-pager.
I don't know about a one-pager,
that'd be
but
pretty short.
I think, because I looked at a more condensed, so I'd be willing to maybe give some notes on how we can make it
okay.
more concise, and that is a live document, so that if we need to change something, it's the
Well, that's
opportunity
good.
to happen
Mhm.
before there's a problem.
That would be great. Okay, so let me know if you want help on that.
Okay.
Okay, 11.5, naming a facility committee. Consider a citizen advisory committee pursuant to Board Policy 7310 and Board Bylaw.
Right, so we've had a lot of discussion around this in our workshops and whatnot. So essentially, if we look at our policies, Policy 7310 gives us the board the right to name a facility or change the name of a school. We do have a request from our alternative education to change, so there is a need, and that request came from the students and the teachers to want to actually have that change. So there is a need that has been expressed there, along with the other concerns that we've had within the community as well. The policy does allow, or does request that does outline that the school or facility should be named for individuals living or deceased and entities that have made outstanding contributions, including financial contributions to the school community, individuals living or deceased who have made contributions of statewide, national, or worldwide significance, or the geographic area in which the school or building is located. So we would be looking within those parameters. The policy also goes on to say that we will form a citizens advisory committee, and that's not a should do, it's a shall be appointed, to review names and make recommendations to the board. Before adopting any name, the board would hold a public hearing to get public input on the proposed name. And when naming or renaming a district school, the board can specify the duration that name will be in effect. Well, that was an interesting part of that, for sure. Our policy on the Citizens Advisory Committee, our AR and BP 1220 outline the requirements for the formation of the work of a committee, for the formation and work of the committee. Committee meetings are public and must allow the opportunity for public input. Committee recommendations are not binding for the board. And the membership of the Citizens Advisory Committees should reflect the diversity of the community and represent a diversity of viewpoints. So we wouldn't want to have a committee that only represents one side of any issue.
Right. And is that people volunteering, or are you putting together that?
So I think in my interactions, I have found people who are interested. So I think we've put out an application process just to kind of outline and try to understand if someone felt strongly one way or another about an issue, that we understand what side of things are, so that we can have a balanced committee and
Right.
not have it stacked in one way or the other. We want to hear everyone's viewpoint. Be able to consider that as a part of the committee work.
Okay.
So your email from the staff member that you shared with us, Joe, led me to believe that perhaps we were going to start with the renaming of alt ed and kind of hone our skills, and then decide whether we want to tackle a bigger topic.
That's what I would recommend at this point, so that we can actually get a committee functioning and understand its roles and work out some of those kinks, and not do that while we're also feeling a very, thinking of a more political and charged issue, where folks come in with more feeling behind it. I'm getting the impression that Alted changing its name is not very controversial in the community so far.
So does the, it seems like there's pretty strict parameters, the way they lay it out for what you can base your naming on. I mean, they want to do Inspiration High, doesn't really fit any of those. Is that, they have wiggle room?
They could have some wiggle room, for sure. Those are suggestions within the board policy, but it doesn't say it shall be one of those things.
Oh, yeah, just a shell name.
Yeah.
Does say shall name? Okay. Well, then we will have that discussion as a part of the committee, and we'll make sure that the staff there understand that here's what the board policy says. around
Well, or
this.
this is why we're looking at it. You know,
Right.
we haven't named
Right,
anything
maybe we
in
need to
quite
change the
some.
policy.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Sure.
That's the other reason why we've been looking at this for months. 'Cause there hasn't been a need, and that seems like, yeah, that's more about people, and they actually say these days not to name things after a person.
Right,
Right.
exactly. So
So
maybe
if you
that
would
should be
like,
the
I can
next
look
step.
at this board policy with other
Because I've looked at a
districts
few,
and
yeah.
see if someone's modernized it a little bit. And
Because I think that's kind of, well, it
So
says
we want
it's,
to fix that before we move forward? Bring it back to discussion again, or?
well, and my question was, when we had appointed at our organizational meeting, the 2 board members, that was just because we wanted to have you have the ability to meet with the superintendent and be kind of working on what you'd present to us at the board meeting. So that's still in place, is that, that's
Yeah, the only thing that
correct?
bothers me about it is it was never agendized. I went back and looked through October, and there was nothing on the agenda, just kind of came, I just wanted it to be
But
all
we-
the Ts.
But this policy's been on the agenda a couple times.
No, it hasn't.
The policy has.
Oh, the policy, but not the,
Yeah,
not
the
the
policy,
committee.
which is part of that discussion.
So-
And then we agendized the organizational meeting with what could be appointed. So that wasn't really anything, that was totally transparent.
Just being extra careful, I guess.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah.
So shall we look at, Joe, you'll do that work to make sure
We'll
we
get
can
some other-
update and modernize and
Yes.
certainly change that verbiage, and then we'll put that on action, the board policy next time? Or should we discuss that one more time?
I would want to first read on it and follow
Okay.
our typical process with
Yeah,
it.
okay, so then,
Um,
and we'll probably have other board policies next month anyway.
I would think so.
Yeah.
There's usually a release in March for CSBA.
Yeah, okay.
So, I have learned that education is a very slow-moving ship over the many years, but, I'm not sure, we've been, I don't know if, I'm wondering, can we deal with the board policy and set the committee kind of simultaneously so we don't keep putting these people off, I guess is
And
my.
that's, are you looking at the agenda item, like fixing the board policy for what we can name a school is different than considering to form a committee.
Right,
So
so
I
I'm
still want to
wondering,
discuss
can we
the
do the
forming, that's,
same,
the
right, can we
policies,
do?
that's great, but we
Mhm.
still need to talk about. what
I'm just,
the-
yeah, I'm wondering if we
agenda
can
item.
kind of put these two
Yes.
things together moving
Mhm.
forward, even, because by the time you get the committee together, we'll have the board policy together so they know exactly what the
They're
name
dealing with.
could come up with. but, you know, I mean, we're in March,
Mhm.
so,
Well, that was the point of having the 2 board members appointed, so that they can do their you know, because we want this to be transparent, but a board can appoint any 2 members to have a subcommittee, and then that's when it comes forth to be public, so there's nothing,
Right, so I
that's the
guess,
process.
well, a question.
And that was in
though-
December, so this
Yeah.
is March.
But a question
So-
is the board comfortable with these 2 board members working with the superintendent to form a committee? Like, are we there yet or
I-
not?
Well,
we agree
But that's,
with
you
that.
do the brain work
Yeah.
and then present it to us, so that there was nothing to be decided in your subgroup committee. And that's where I'm kind of,
So
at a
you're
loss of
thinking-
words,
so
that there's nothing's
thought-
happened yet.
you thought when we left
When they were appointed, that they could easily have made an appointment
to
with,
make a recommendation to us?
to
or-
what this would look like, in the sense of a timeline, or how many people would be on a citizen advisory committee, you know, whatever that process looks like, that could have been happening since December. And I guess we haven't really had, this is
Right.
new, we haven't had, we usually, well, this is one, you know, the other thing that's part of it, would be also, I don't think this would be a huge budget item, but we haven't had, a committee that's been appointed by a board member that would require funds. Usually it's the audit committee where we're called in to do something,
Mhm.
and that's usually what's been our, appointments.
So, going forward, in the essence of time,
Yes. I
can
think-
we pull these both together and start the committee process at the same time?
I'll set up some time, Scott, with you and Jerry, that we
Yeah,
can
okay.
set out the parameters, and we'll bring back.
Great.
Proposed
I was gonna
parameters.
say the next
Yeah.
one. I don't think it'll be by Thursday. I mean, we may meet by Thursday, but I don't think we'll have everything.
Yeah.
Want to speak, Con? You
Well,
wanna
yeah,
say
we
anything?
need to ask for public.
Sure.
Hey, can you?
Well, you've been sitting
Might
all
just
night.
put a
Yes.
microphone, sir. Thank you.
Public comment, I guess. Huh? So it sounds like,
So can I interrupt you real quick? I'm
Sure.
sorry. Supposed to read this
Oh, okay.
little
She
spiel.
has a thing
Sure.
for you.
We haven't had anybody before this, so. Individuals may address the board on agenda items on both the closed session and regular session agenda during public participation and/or at the time they are under consideration by completing the form. Never mind that. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers will be chosen in random order. So I think we can go forward. 3 minutes. Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, so it sounds to me like this process is going to be very similar to, I was on the citizens committee at the city for a name change of the city. And so it sounded like what bits I heard, it sounded very similar, what the procedure and what you want to put together as far as the committee goes. An equal amount of people who might feel differently about names and this sort of thing. But I wonder, where else do you get the parameters for putting together, or is that what you're going to develop?
That's what we're going to develop. That's the direction that I've heard from the board. So we'll meet and bring back a presentation of this is what the parameters, timeline, scope of the committee's work will be.
We went way over our timeline. It's supposed to be like 6 months, and it was a year and a half, but I would hate to see something like that happen again. Okay, well, thank you.
Scott, before you leave, could you state your name so that we have that on?
Oh, yeah, I'm Scott Taubold, Dr. Scott Taubold. I have a PhD in psychology.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Okay, so we have our charge going forward.
Was there any public comment on Diva?
Okay. We'll move forward.
For sure.
Yeah. I thought we'd have a full room.
So I'm curious, you had a lot of input at your board chat, but we have only Mr. Taubold here coming tonight, so,
And Mr. Taubold attended then
Yes.
too.
okay.
And, yeah, he,
So you did have interest in board chat?
we did, yeah, we had a number of people and I think there were 7?
5.
There were 5
Five.
participants beyond our
Right.
core group.
So, yeah, we had a former parent and also student, and her parents, I think, went to the same schools, and Scott and Mr., why can't I remember that name? Lashenko, thank you. And we had a couple of people who we didn't see their names. They didn't participate, but they listened.
Just curious, the feedback that you got today, is that kind of supporting where we're going, or are we going way off the?
Different topic a little bit.
A little
okay.
different topic, yeah. Yeah.
But there was a member there, or a public that would be maybe interested, so they might
Mhm.
apply. We did get that, but they were, anyway, we could talk about it at the board report.
Yeah.
But just to also understand that when we were in the advocacy, Mary and I worked on that letter, and then we brought it towards the board. So even though we were doing that, the two of us who didn't have a Brown Act violation, nothing needed to be posted for us to do that. Nothing
Mhm.
needed to be agendized. But then we brought it to the board, and that's when it came about. So it's a similar idea,
Mhm.
similar concept. So.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think this is gonna be really interesting waters for us to go through. So I know the city went through it. And I mean, just us, we haven't done a lot of work like this, where we've broken off and done something and then come back. So, Scott said, are those two people? I don't know who is, do we need to make sure we have two people on different sides of where we know this topic is going? Or do we need to worry about that?
Well, and I think in this, I thought I read it, here I am dreaming again. I think that if we really wanted, it says that we can go as observers. So
Oh,
majority of the board
okay.
can go, but we cannot say a peep. Like, we have to sit in the
Right.
corner with tape over our mouth if we really wanted to watch the process. That's what it says in the policy here.
Mhm.
But the other thing that came out in today's, is that how alt ed, the name has changed many times over the last 30 years, 20 or 30 years. So that is something that it's kind of cycled through the school, within the school, has that need. So I don't know how it changed all those years.
Right, I have no idea.
What the
They added
process was, if there's any
schools,
archives,
Mhm.
but it has changed a number of times. So it's just a matter of that it's in the cycle again, that their vision's changed, and their, like you said, the branding today, that did
Right.
come up at the board chat.
Right, as they're evolving.
And so that seems like it's something that a board has dealt with a
Mhm.
few times, or maybe they didn't. I don't know.
They must have. I think they, yeah,
Can I take the stand again, real quick, or?
please do.
Take the stand. I've done that before too. But anyway, I'm curious as to, I've been curious for a while about if, I don't know how the school board interacts with like your larger entities or the state or that sort of thing, but I was wondering if you had gotten any pressure or influence from any higher-ups about changing the name of the school? Or,
From like a official organization and further up in the state?
no, nothing. Because I did read that in an educational newsletter, but then I went back to see exactly who it was from and how official it was, but I couldn't find it. So it's just from the public, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the two that will be.
Yes.
Yeah, so I feel perfectly comfortable working with Scott if you don't want me to do it.
Oh, no, that's not, no.
I think you're
when you-
a good
No,
pair.
we haven't voted or said our opinions about what we all think. I know that we're starting with Noyo, but let's be honest.
Right.
This is gonna end up about the name of the two school sites.
And
So-
possibly the
In the
district.
district.
Yes, thank you. So, I was just, when I hear that, it makes me think, should we make sure that, I don't know. I don't know the answer, because we haven't done this before.
Make
It
sure
doesn't
what?
matter if you,
Make
that
sure
we
that
have
our-
2 people on both, or a person on each side of this topic.
Well, totally, and you're
And
saying
I
in
don't
the
know, I've
citizen
never been
group.
through this,
The
so I don't.
citizen group you're talking
She's
about.
talking about within.
The citizen
within-
group,
Oh,
like,
the citizen group.
I don't know if
that'll-
it's
that will
important,
be.
because, you know, I know that the committee, whatever they bring to us is not binding, or whatever the official word is in the bylaw, that the 5 of us are still gonna do the vote at the end, when it comes down to it. So, but I don't know.
So to answer from my perspective, to answer your question, the role of the 2 board members is to ensure the process happens as fairly and as correctly as possible. I don't think it's important, I don't think my personal opinion on whether or not a name is changed is, at this point, important.
It's not
I
really.
Yeah, I
just,
think we should keep that out of it.
yeah, I mean, I volunteered in December because I would like to see the process, I'm curious, I would like to see the process happen, whatever the outcome, whether we change NOYA or not, or whatever happens.
Yeah.
So
And then
that's,
I think the committee
That's
needs
my
to be
intention.
representative of our community, of our constituents.
yeah, I think the committee, yes, like
That's
this
what-
was
I
for the
think that's
city.
Right, that's what I was
very
clear.
important, but I don't know if it's so important to have 2 board
Right.
members that
Yeah.
are on
Right, that's not
different
relevant at this
quote
point.
unquote sides.
Well, and that was what I was clarifying, because I wasn't sure what you were, I thought you were asking about the citizens group. You weren't asking about
Well, I assumed these 2 people would be on the citizens group.
the 2 board
Oh,
members.
Yeah.
With-
I just
Right,
thought this was all
right,
kind of flowing
right.
into the same thing.
I see what you're saying, so, but then, it wouldn't matter, you just, I guess, well, that would be a little bit
You
interesting.
become mute, essentially, until you
Yeah.
come to this
But you'd
table.
have the
Right.
other group,
Yeah.
yeah, it probably is a non-issue.
Or not mute, but,
Right.
I can't think of the word.
Neutral.
Thank you.
But with the
It's
hot,
been a, you know.
yeah, but with
been
the
at this
hot
since 6.
ticket item, you know, with the larger, like, you know, looking at the town name, you know, back when this was brought up before, there's no funding behind this. So that's gonna be, that's where I was asking before. We're setting up this committee, and they're gonna be doing all this work, and we're like, well, we can't pay for it. So, I mean, that's where I worry about, you know, about having the geographic name of our town, that it seems like we're doing it in a kind of a weird order, with the name change of the 2 schools in the district. Because that's what, I'm looking at it in a fiscal sense. All the other areas that are getting name change, especially like Fort Liberty, they've had it administered and implemented from the state of the defense, the federal
Department
government.
of Defense, yeah.
The Department of Defense, and paying for it. So you can't compare what Fort Liberty's doing and what, you know,
No,
where we are.
No, that's apples and oranges, but
Yeah.
Joe, are you aware of other schools? Have you been in contact with anybody that's
I
gone
have
through
talked to
this?
some other schools, and they've said generally that's part of the discussion with that committee, is to say if there are folks who are passionate about a name change, and you know, this is going many hypotheticals down the way, that if we did end up there, those folks pushing for that change are usually the ones who have been charged with helping with fundraising to support that goal, that it didn't all come from taxpayer dollars, because I think that's the last thing we want to do, is take opportunities away from students
Right,
to pay for
something to be very
something,
costly, yeah,
yes, yeah.
yeah,
So,
okay. Any more discussion at this point? Okay, 7 minutes to 9. I think, can we tape, or do we have to discuss, and I'm new to this, so the self-evaluation now, or could we put that on next Thursday?
I think you can just highlight, did you have notes of just the highlight of what we discussed it, because we discussed this at our workshop,
Right.
and it just needs to be transparent for the
Okay.
public, which it is. It's loaded up, people can see, have public
Right.
comment on what we discussed. So I
Okay,
think
I'll just go over the highlights very quickly then. We looked at all the areas, there were 51 of them, and in most areas, we had actually come to more consensus in things that we often or always usually do. Areas to work on, we had the board review of the governance handbook on protocols, how to bring up new ideas, and handling concerns from the community, and we're going to be talking about that. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Talking about that at the next workshop. Also paying close attention to the amount of time we spend on agenda items that aren't student-centered, keeping a focus on that. The process we used to orient new members was something that we felt like we needed to work on, and a better onboarding process, and that's something also working on. Adopting long-range priorities. The pandemic really threw a wrench in certain areas, and strategic goal planning, so that's something that we'll have a big workshop. And also, the pandemic really put a hold on board advocacy on behalf of our students in public education. We couldn't really go anywhere. We are sending Joe, you are going to Washington, D.C. for the federal legislative action. We have 2 members signed up for the California Legislative Action Week, so we're working on that as well. Any other?
Just
No?
that before you and Diana leave, that we should probably
Yes.
solidify those meetings.
So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, actually, I think we can all go.
what's that?
I didn't think that we could all,
We can't, so
Yeah.
one of us has to go, so.
or, because you're probably committed.
I mean, I
Commitments.
have time available, but I think it being a CSBA that they're maybe thinking.
And
more.
what they're talking about is that with Mike McGuire, even though the 3 of us are signed up, they told us only 1 can go. 5 people total are going to be attending that.
So
It's much
at
smaller than normal.
the meeting that we had, the self-evaluation, I stated that I signed up for it, but that if anyone wanted to do it,
No, you go ahead and do it.
well, because Scott.
Oh, did you sign up too?
Well, he had maybe an interest, because the March 14 and March 15 are the days, and 2:45 on the Tuesday and 2 o'clock on the Wednesday. And these are it's virtual.
It's virtual.
So these are the talking points, and so I just, what I said at the self-evaluation meeting was that I would register, but then I would forward out the information, and whoever had the passion, it didn't have to be me, so. Anyway, we could probably, we can probably figure it out.
Yeah.
At the advanced planning, maybe we'll let it
Yeah.
mellow.
Okay. So we'll come back to that. Shall we table the book study for our workshop when we or for April? We'll do chapters 3 and 4 in April.
Sure.
Okay. And definitely we need to talk about 11.8, if everyone's okay with that, alternative education graduation requirements.
And I'll make it very brief, I promise. So we're just looking at, we kind of surveyed the other adult ed. It's not really the alt ed that we're looking at, it's really the adult ed side. Programs within the region. And we found out that we're the only one requiring 200 credits to graduate. Many of them are around 150 to 180, just depending on where they are. So we have a proposal that would reduce the number of elective credits by 35, reduce math credits by 10, and eliminate the 5 credit health requirement to bring the total down to 150 credits to graduate. It would still meet all of the state requirements. And so I wanted to put that on your radar, give you some time to kind of chew that over and think about it, because it is a pretty big move. But I'll also send out to you, I realized I forgot to attach the document that had the other schools in the area with what their credit requirements are, so you can see a comparison. So.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
I know this has been on our radar because this isn't the first time we've heard this. So it's something there was potentially a need.
Yes, and I think the research that Connie did on it really showed that we're the only ones sitting that high. So.
Well, especially the 35 credits of elective.
It's
most
very hard to
adults
get.
probably could get credit for all the things they've been doing in their lives to date.
Right, I'll be interested to see them, are these 3 reductions representative of the other schools? Because 10 math, I don't know. The 35 electives, yeah, I mean, your
Right.
finger paint, you're making stuff up. I'm used to
Right.
being a school counselor. But the math, makes me a little,
Yeah,
I mean,
that would
people
still
need some math
require
skills in their life.
20 math credits, so it would require algebra and one other math class, which is the state requirement, is the current proposal. But that's open for debate too. I don't think math is the issue with trying to get that done through adult ed. I think it's really it's the electives that are the most harmful to folks, because there's just not a lot of elective opportunity
Choices.
for
Yeah.
adults.
Gotcha.
On the other side of it, the math, though, 20 credits of math is going to give you a good sound basis in basic math. A lot of people that are graduating from adult school are not necessarily going on to college. If they are, probably going to a JC to start. Well, they would, they'd have to. They're definitely going to get their math there. They don't have a choice. So I don't know.
I just find our world is less, can't balance a checkbook, can't do a basic tax return, you know,
They
can't.
don't even have a checkbook, Kathy.
I know, but I mean, like, but we don't, I mean, they don't even, anyway.
Yeah,
It's
I
fine.
get it.
Like that would be a great class to require,
Yeah.
a basic life skills math class, like
To an
Larry
accounting,
Robinson used to teach.
an accounting.
And you taught one. Yeah.
And what's the 5 credit health requirement they do now?
It's just a 5 credit health requirement that sits out there, whereas most other programs are using physical education, which folks can get, because you can do,
Right.
you know, I went walking for an hour with my kids tonight and count that as PE credit or whatnot. So it's I wouldn't have a problem with switching to health for a PE requirement or something along those lines, but I just don't think that it's having more coursework in health when you're an adult is maybe not meeting some of the same goals that we would have as a high schooler.
Well, and our health classes are really based for ninth graders. They're sex education, they're smoking, I mean, things, drug education.
It's preventative of a lot of behaviors that
We're
may be more
hoping the
socially
adults
acceptable as an adult.
Or that they've already learned not to do. Okay, so are you going to bring that back to
I
action?
will bring it
then?
back to you. I wanted to not
Okay,
bring that for action without the opportunity to discuss and give you some time to this is a big change.
Is there
Yeah.
a state minimum regarding with credits?
There are, I think the state minimum's 135.
So do you know how we ever got to 200?
What's that?
Do you know how we got so high?
Just, I'm sure it was backing from the high school requirement and kind of going back and saying, okay, well, we can take this off, we can take that off. Because the high school requirement's 240,
I thought it was 220.
is it
No.
220?
Used to be.
220?
Yeah, it was.
Used to
Okay.
be 220. Or-
But some high schools are 240, I mean.
Some high schools are,
Yeah.
yeah. I think with longer period days, or
Mhm.
more periods in the day, they
Yep.
require more.
Yeah, it is, I know what you're saying, Kathy, though, because the standard keeps decreasing, because even the state bar has reduced what you can, how you can receive your, pass the bar with a lower score.
Mhm.
So you don't want to keep in that trend.
And I'm not saying, I think we should reduce it. I don't think the adults should have to be just kept busy to keep busy. But I'm just curious as to see proportionately where that is, because I think financial math, business math, whatever you want to call it, is a great adult,
Oh, I completely
Skill.
agree.
It really
and
is.
that's all.
Well, maybe if we could see a pie chart of what they are getting for the 150, just to
I
know
just shared
that they're mostly getting math still. So it is, there needs to be an investment class too.
Personal budgeting.
Right,
Yeah.
So I shared that with you, so you
Okay.
can all review it, and then I'll bring that back
okay, thank you.
next time.
Real brief board reports.
Good, because I don't have one, so.
I'll get a brief one. Let me see. My wife and I attended the Fort Bragg PD meeting at the middle school that Joe was at on fentanyl and Narcan and social media. And
Oh, yeah.
they just made it very clear that they're there to help. And I think we have a great chief, and I'm excited to see how he transforms. It's like it's pretty well on its way to being transformed.
Great.
But he was very sincere. And I made the Dana Gray Parents Club and Science Site Council meetings. There's one Dana Gray Site Council member who is also the president of the Dana Gray Site Club, so they need some members. And one of the things I suggested was moving the meetings from 3:30 in the afternoon to 5:30 like the Parents Club, because people are working.
Right,
So they're working on it.
great,
That's all I got.
thank you.
Finished up the basketball season, that's about all I got.
Well, that's a good one. Diana?
Sleeping. Just quickly, the trauma-informed education that CSB provided on February 21 was pretty informative, and I think it's worth watching. And then some other family night, health night was given out to another state, and it was parentguidance.org, and it was kind of an online interface where you could have scenarios to try to talk to your teens where you think maybe are struggling or their mental health has changed, because you know how it is talking to teenagers. But it was all interface just to kind of get the mindset. And anyway, I thought it was an interesting parentguidance.org. I have no idea what it's all about, but that was reach out for families. And I did attend the virtual ELAC-DLAC, but it ended up just being an ELAC meeting to present the LCAP. There wasn't any verbal input on the LCAP, but maybe she got some emails sent. And then the DLAC portion of that meeting will be the later, the March 23rd meeting, which I cannot attend. And then I also attended the booster dinner and the FFA walk. And I went to the February 13 Alt Ed exhibitions, which was great because it happened to be the same family. I don't know if it was the same sibling that I watched before, to see him involved in his process. So that was pretty exciting. And then I went to the Redwood site meeting as well and saw Superintendent Aldridge present for the LCAP. And then legislation action, I don't know, let me know if you're interested in one or both those days.
Thank you. And I'll be really quick. The Friends of Mendocino College Coast Center, we did our chamber mixer, which Joe attended and it was pretty well attended. I was impressed, and they actually made some money. A board president's webinar that was separate from the all-day board president, all-day training that CSBA put on. Interesting. Three Rivers board meeting, and then I also did the exhibition that was, yeah, quite good at Noyo High School. So
Did you attend the Three Rivers board meeting? Is it live, or did you do it by Zoom?
I did it virtually.
But they do them.
Because I was
they're there
out
too,
of
right?
town. Huh?
They are doing them live too, right?
Yes. Yeah, you can attend in person.
I think
Yeah.
I'm up next month or.
Yes. So, yeah, at 5:30. Yeah, they're where they always used to be before, in the classroom back there. But, yeah, I was out of town, so I did it virtually. Okay. We all know our sites, right? I can do the DLAC meeting March 23rd unless somebody else wanted to do that. But we'll all try to get to the things at our sites, yes? And I'll do Three Rivers also with you.
That'd be great, thank you, because I can't make that one.
Yeah. Okay. So, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And a second.
A second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.